Chapter 1585, Theta Extermination Battle, Part 2. In the outer space of the planet Theta, two fleets with vastly different styles engaged in a fierce exchange of fire. More than 20 Geth warships emerged from hyperspace and entered the Theta system, immediately launching an unprovoked attack. These Geth warships utilized hyperspace navigation technology, granting them unparalleled mobility across galaxies, allowing them to travel thousands of light-years in just a few hours. For the Galactic Republic, this was not surprising, and they had come to accept it. In this galaxy, it was rare to navigate without a hyperspace channel. However, for those in the know, teaching hyperspace navigation technology to the Geth was akin to giving Hot Wheels to an already terrifying mechanical civilization. This significantly enhanced their range of activities and mobility, making them several times faster than before. Although there were only 20 Geth warships, their combat effectiveness and maneuverability were exceptional. Every Galactic Republic Navy officer fighting in the north knew that the combat capability of a mere 300-meter-long Geth cruiser surpassed that of a Jaeger-class battlecruiser without carrier-based aircraft. Now, these 20 Geth battleships attacked the Republic battleships like mad dogs, firing wildly and ferociously. Their aggression shocked the Republic fleet commander, Lieutenant Admiral Henderson, who had to order the fleet to tighten its formation and adopt a dense defensive posture. However, this meant the fleet could not assist the battlefield on the planet. Despite this, Lieutenant General Henderson launched 1,000 fighter jets ahead of schedule, sending them into the planet's atmosphere to reinforce the Cheer-class assault landing ships and the clone army on the ground. But the Cheer-class ships in the atmosphere were struggling to hold on. Boom, boom, boom. Dozens of light blue plasma beams from the Geth frigates exploded against the Cheer-class ships' deflector shields. The strong electromagnetic reaction of the plasma cannons rapidly depleted the shield's energy levels. The two Cheer-class assault landing ships fought desperately, releasing all their fighter jets. However, most of the aircraft they carried were LA-8I assault transport boats and Y-wing bombers, with fewer than 100 V-19 Torrent light fighters. This level of fighter formation was insufficient against the Geth fighters. The captains of the Cheer-class ships were frantic, unable to comprehend how many Geth were hidden on the planet. Millions of corpse puppets had been transported to the planet without anyone's knowledge, a testament to the chaotic management of planet Theta. On the ground, the clone troopers who had taken their defensive positions looked ahead as night fell. The half-occupied city of Delaware plunged into darkness, with countless high-rise buildings standing like ominous giants. Sporadic gunshots and screams echoed through the city as residents who had evaded the initial massacre were found and killed by corpse puppets. The fire from the detonated fuel depot provided some light, but it was insufficient to illuminate the dark city. The number of corpse puppets blocked by the burning fuel warehouse was unknown, as was the number still active in the darkness. Even the clone soldiers were nervous. Suddenly, the radar operator shouted, "They're coming!" The radar screen was filled with countless red dots converging at an alarming speed. Rushing towards the clone troopers' line of defense, the scene was chaotic. "Flare launch! All units, fire!" the clone commander ordered. Instantly, flares were launched from hundreds of positions, illuminating the dark city. Under the bright light, countless corpse puppets could be seen charging forward. Boom! Boom! The AV-7 self-propelled artillery began to fire, and the clone troopers' blaster rifles unleashed a barrage of red blaster beams. The corpse puppets at the front fell like wheat before a scythe, but they showed no fear and continued their relentless advance. However, this time, the situation was different. Boom! Boom! Several ion cannons exploded within the clone's position, causing several clone soldiers to abandon their bunkers and retreat quickly. More are followed, originating from among the corpse puppets. Not only ion cannons, but also plasma rifles were firing. Amidst the ordinary corpse puppets, larger ones could be seen, with ion cannons crudely stitched onto their arms, firing mechanically. Among them were even corpse puppets of clone soldiers who had died in previous battles on other planets. Although these clone corpse puppets had turned into mummified corpses, their polymer alloy armor still hung loosely, providing minimal protection. These advanced corpse puppets had a basic level of intelligence. They could fire, shoot, and take cover behind bunkers. The appearance of these special zombie puppets finally put significant pressure on the Republic's clone soldiers' defense line, leading to casualties. The sheer number of corpse puppets was overwhelming. With enough cannon fodder to attract firepower, the larger corpse puppets and clone corpse puppets could inflict more damage. The artillery fire in Delaware City roared, but as time passed, the situation began to change. Several clone troopers, positioned behind a temporary bunker, fired precise bursts from their DC-15S blaster rifles, targeting the corpse puppets' weak spots. They had learned that the weakness of the corpse puppets was the hole in their abdomen. Although headshots were effective, in the chaos of battle, it was safer to aim for the body. Suddenly, there was a sound of something breaking through the sky. "Be careful above," a clone soldier shouted, raising his gun and firing. The crimson blaster bolts exploded on a huge monster in midair, but it didn't stop its descent. A massive praying mantis, over 2 meters tall, fell from the sky, its cicada-like wings fluttering. This mantis was lifeless, a brand new type of corpse puppet. The mantis puppet swung its sickle-like arms, knocking out several nearby clone soldiers. Despite the blaster rifles creating countless holes in its body, it remained unstoppable. It had ion cannons stitched onto its other arms, which it used to blast another clone trooper away. The most troubling aspect of this mantis-shaped corpse puppet was its hidden weakness. Although the hole in its abdomen was its vulnerability, the mantis's posture concealed it, making it nearly impossible to hit. "It's the transformed Yamri," some well-informed clone troopers shouted. Yamri, a race resembling praying mantises, were the enemies of the colossal. But now, they had been turned into formidable zombies. More Yamri corpse puppets descended from the sky, adding to the chaos. Thank you to the book friend, 2021-3130448 for the reward of 1,500 starting coins. And thank you to Morning Wuhuaxia for the reward of 500 starting coins. Chapter 1586, Theta Extermination Battle, Part 2. The 204th Clone Legion now understands the fate of the blocking force in the small town ahead. These corpse puppets of the Yamri. The Yamri themselves are a race with excellent physical fitness, and their mantis-shaped appearance is well suited for hand-to-hand combat. After being exterminated by the Geth, they were transformed into corpse puppets. The transformation of the Yamri corpse puppets is advanced, not only granting them basic intelligence, but also equipping them with powerful ion cannons. The wings on the back of the Yamri allow them to fly short distances, making them even more terrifying. It is easy to imagine what happened to the blocking forces stationed in the town. Countless Yamri corpse puppets flew out of the forest, overcame the obstacles set up by the engineering team, and rushed directly into the formation of clone soldiers, initiating a massacre. Although the clone troopers are highly trained, they were inevitably overwhelmed by this sudden and intense attack. The attackers, equipped with ion cannons, were powerful and impervious to bullets. When the front line could no longer be maintained, the clone troopers hastily detonated the fuel warehouse. However, they didn't have time to create a 10-kilometer burning zone as planned. This hasty detonation may have killed many corpse puppets, but it couldn't create a large sea of flames to block their advance. Now, even the clone army that has entered the position is facing extreme trouble from the large number of Yamri corpse puppets. The Yamri corpse puppets flapped their wings and flew over the bunkers, ignoring the bombardment of the AV-7 self-propelled artillery, and directly engaged the clone troopers. The clone troopers did not panic, but had to continue retreating in the face of the Yamri corpse puppets' assault. This situation cannot be entirely blamed on the clone troopers, as they had entered positions built by gangsters and mercenaries. Those individuals naturally lacked knowledge of proper depth and cover, constructing positions by piling up whatever they could find. Against the Yamri corpse puppets, who could fly short distances, these positions were useless. The clone troopers had to abandon their positions and keep retreating, deploying L-8 assault transport boats for air support. The L-8s, flying at low altitude, continuously fired rockets, and the laser beams from the spherical laser turrets on both sides swept across the ground, killing many corpse puppets. However, this advantage was short-lived. Geth fighters immediately targeted these assault transport ships, swooping down and firing plasma cannons, destroying several LATs in one encounter. In the sky, the Cheers-class assault landing ships were continuously climbing. They could no longer resist the attacks of the Geth fighters and had to leave the atmosphere to fight in space. Once the battle returned to space, the performance gap between the fighters of the two sides would narrow, and they would receive reinforcements from their fleet. In the atmosphere, Geth fighters, having no pilots, could accelerate and turn without restraint, while the Republic pilots could not. Therefore, the current air battle in the atmosphere was one-sided, not due to a significant gap between the fighters, but the pilots. Fighting in outer space would improve the situation. However, this meant the clone army lost its final air support. At this moment, the mastermind behind the entire battle, the Geth, finally appeared. With their flashlight-like heads, flexible bodies combining mechanical and bionic materials, and their organized approach, the true challenge had just begun. The battlefield was a scene of chaos and terror. The Yamuri corpse puppets, with their intelligence rivaling any living creature, were a nightmare to face. They used their assault forces strategically. Ordinary corpse puppets served as cannon fodder, while larger and cloned corpse puppets provided fire support. When the cloned soldiers' defenses began to falter, the Yamuri emerged, from the shadows to deliver a fatal blow. Fourth Company, eliminate the advancing Yamuri immediately. Focus on them, a commander shouted. Notify the artillery company. Coordinate 72K. We need fire support urgently. Retreat, retreat, 7th Company. Get into the commercial building behind us and set up the E-Web blaster machine gun. The night was lit up by the frantic flicker of red blaster beams. Despite the dire circumstances, the clone soldiers resisted resolutely. However, the blue plasma clusters raining down were even more ferocious. The plasma cannons continued to explode, and the temporary bunkers couldn't withstand the relentless assault. Boom, boom, boom. Larger plasma clusters began to fall from the sky, flying in parabolic trajectories under magnetic field constraints and causing violent explosions upon impact. It's the Geth Colossus. Don't stay outside. Spread out the skirmish lines. A clone sergeant yelled. Boom. Another plasma cluster exploded nearby, blasting the sergeant off his feet. As the explosion subsided, several clone troopers rushed over and dragged the sergeant to safety. Where's our artillery? The sergeant demanded, removing his scorched helmet and tossing it aside. The 11th Artillery Company was just bombed. The 109th is being transferred. We have nothing left, a nearby clone soldier shouted. No, we can't retreat like this. Get inside the building and establish a firepower point. We need to drag as many Geth and corpse puppets here as possible to create opportunities for others, the sergeant commanded. Yes, Sergeant, the soldiers responded. Explosions continued to erupt around them as more than a dozen corpse puppets charged through the burning smoke. The clone soldiers, fueled by anger, roared and fired, taking down the advancing enemies. Meanwhile, on the planet Vakar, at a medical station of the 7th Army of the Galactic Republic, a doctor was trying to restrain a young officer. Colonel Peleon, you can't leave. Your treatment isn't finished, the doctor pleaded. Gerald Peleon, now promoted to colonel, was briskly getting dressed. I have to go now. If you're worried about my health, I can have a medical robot accompany me, but the situation is urgent, and I must act, he said firmly. He turned and entered the communication room, closing the door behind him. Activating the encryption mode, he connected a communication line. Moments later, a holographic projection of a man in his 50s with a serious bald head and a dark complexion appeared. It was Marcellin Wessel, governor of the 7th Army of the Galactic Republic. If I remember correctly, you should still be recuperating at the medical station, Colonel Peleon, Wessel said slowly. The situation is very urgent. I just received news that the Geth have appeared on the planet Theta, Peleon said urgently. That is under the jurisdiction of the 9th Army, and it's a planet hostile to the Republic. I don't understand what Governor Dunn Wessex of the 9th Army is thinking, but choosing a battlefield there was a very foolish decision. When did such a brat relying on nepotism get ahead? Wessel snorted coldly. It was clear that Wessel, who had climbed to his position through seniority, had little respect for those who advanced through connections. Gilad Palaeon did not think highly of people like Dun Wessex, who relied on the power of his family to make his fortune. As a reminder, Dun Wessex is the current boyfriend of Quart's chief engineer, Lila Blissex. It's not that simple. I think the Geth are most likely targeting Paran Minor, the capital of the Ninth Army, Gilad Palaeon said. Are you confused by looking at the star map, Colonel Palaeon? Although the planet Phaida appears close to Paran Minor on the star map, the actual distance between these two planets is more than 20 light-years. There is no hyperspace channel directly connecting them, Governor Marcelin Wessel replied. Even if the patrol fleet of the Ninth Army wants to go to Phaida, it must travel from the planet Agama and Kothari, making a detour around the planet Psi. That's not true, Your Excellency, Governor. I've been analyzing the behavior patterns of the Geth recently. They do use hyperspace channels to maneuver most of the time, but there are instances when they appear without warning, like the attack on the planet Nama D and the assault on Doran. During these attacks, the movements of the Geth fleets were unpredictable, Gilad Palaeon insisted. Marceline Wessel seemed a little impatient. What do you mean by unpredictable? Do you expect the enemies on the battlefield to follow your thoughts? If you really think so, then I am truly ashamed of the recommendation of the late Admiral Eureka. Gilad Palaeon explained patiently. I know this idea may sound crazy, but I have studied all the fleet deployments and the physical laws governing hyperspace travel. After leaving hyperspace, all spacecraft experience a short period during which their shields cannot be raised. The fluctuations caused by hyperspace navigation slightly impact the departure coordinates of subsequent ships. So after a fleet exits hyperspace, its formation changes according to these fluctuations. Look, this is the data I analyzed. He opened his personal terminal and displayed countless cases and data analyses. But Marceline Wessel just shook her head and said, I'm busy, Colonel Palaeon. You have 30 seconds to get your point across, or I'll order the medical station to sedate you. Gilad Palaeon was desperate. He slammed his fist onto the console, almost roaring. The Geth have very likely mastered other methods of faster-than-light travel. Governor Wessel's eyes became sharper, and he said coldly, This is not the time for science fiction, Colonel Palaeon. Do you know what you are suggesting? Other means of FTL travel are inefficient and primitive. No one but mad scientists would choose them over hyperspace lanes. Do you have any evidence for this claim? According to my analysis, the Geth fleets that appeared on the planets Namadi and Doran used other means of superluminal travel. That's why they appeared so abruptly. And after their appearance, their formation and routine were different, Gilad Palaeon argued. And think about it. Why would the Geth attack the planet Phaida? There are no factories, no traffic arteries, and an underdeveloped economy. Why would they target such a place? Enough. I order you to recuperate and clear your mind. Report to me face-to-face once you have done so. Dismissed. Governor Marceline Wessel waved her hand, interrupting Gilad Palaeon's words, and then abruptly shut down the communication. Gilad Palaeon stared blankly at the darkened screen, then paced anxiously. No! No! We cannot ignore this possibility. If my inference is correct, then everyone will miscalculate the Geth's determination to capture the planet Phaida. After thinking for a while, he picked up the communicator and connected to a frequency band. Colonel Gilad Palaeon urgently addressed the communication device. Hello, I am Colonel Gilad Palaeon, commander of the 2nd Squadron of the 7th Army of the Republic. I need to speak with Governor Dun Wessex immediately. A sweet female voice responded from the other end. Do you have an appointment with Governor Wessex? Frustrated, Palaeon shouted, I don't even know how to reserve his communication frequency. I'm sorry, the governor does not receive strangers, the female voice replied politely but firmly, before cutting off the communication. Just then, a voice came from outside the communication room. Colonel Palaeon, we have received an order from the governor for you to return to the ward to recuperate immediately. Please open the door. Palaeon took a deep breath, his mind racing as he considered all possible avenues to convey his urgent message to someone of significant influence. Suddenly, he remembered his time at the Raynor Military Academy. The dean there, though not holding a high official position, had extensive connections and might be able to help. More importantly, Peleon had been a top student, leaving a lasting impression on the dean. He quickly connected to the dean's communication line and explained his urgent military situation, requesting contact with Governor Dun Wessex of the Ninth Army of the Republic. The dean pondered for a moment before responding. "I don't know Dun Wessex, but I can contact someone else. This person is currently authorized by Speaker Palpatine and has the authority to speak on matters concerning the northern border." At that moment, the door to the communication room was forcibly opened with a cracker. The attending doctor entered with 2 medical robots. "Colonel Peleon, please return to the ward for treatment immediately." A sinister voice interrupted from the side. "Are you trying to interrupt an officer who is reporting confidential military information to me, Doctor? According to the Republic's Military Secrecy Act, I can arrest you right now and have you shot." The holographic projection revealed the speaker to be none other than Governor Wilhuff Tarkin of the Fourth Army. Chapter 1587, Believe. Seeing that Wilhuff Tarkin was actually talking to Galactic Peleon and had put on a serious demeanor for discussing control military affairs, the doctor was immediately stunned. "Need I repeat it a second time?" Tarkin said coldly. No. The doctor quickly turned around and walked out. He made a quick decision at that moment. Compared to Marceline Wessel, governor of the Seventh Army, Wilhuff Tarkin was undoubtedly more powerful. Even though both of them were governors of star sectors, Marceline Wessel, who was in her 50s, had reluctantly relied on some of her connections and qualifications to get into a remote star area. In contrast, Wilhuff Tarkin was closer to the core of political power in the Galactic Republic. After all, Marceline Wessel's Seventh Army was not on the front line before the Eighth Army was destroyed. Its main duty was to explore unknown star fields. How much power can you expect from a legion whose primary responsibility is exploration? Compared to Wilhuff Tarkin, who, when he was the governor of the 18th Army, was responsible for guarding the transportation hub of the Eriadu system and suppressing the planet Sullust. At that time, the 18th Army was a frontline fighting force. Even after the disastrous defeat of the 18th Army, Tarkin was able to rise again and serve as the governor of the Fourth Army. This kind of experience alone is enough to overshadow Marceline Wessel. After the doctor fled in a panic, Wilhuff Tarkin turned around and looked at Galactic Peleon. "Although it was recommended by Dean Conrad, the reason I am willing to listen to your opinion is more important to you personally, Colonel Peleon. Although the 2 battles you commanded ended in failure, judging from the battle situation, your command had many bright spots. To put it bluntly, I appreciate you very much. Tell me, do you have any military information to report?" Galactic Peleon said eagerly, "I hope to increase the number of troops on planet Theta immediately. Because planet Theta is likely to be the springboard for the Geths to attack the capital of the Ninth Army, planet Palin Minor." Tarkin frowned and said, "As the current top student of the Raynor Military Academy, you should not make common-sense mistakes. Then, what made you ignore geographical factors and make such a judgment?" "I don't have any direct evidence, but I have analyzed the data of the last 4 months when the Geth fleet appeared. There are more than 270 cases before and after. The analysis of these cases shows that in more than 30 of them, the Geth fleet exhibited unusual behavior after leaving hyperspace," Galactic Peleon explained, calling up his personal terminal data. "What's the problem?" Wilhuff Tarkin, unlike Marceline Wessel, was looking at the data seriously. "Wait a minute. In these cases, after the Geth fleet left hyperspace, the escort shields were deployed and there was a process of restarting the engines?" "That's right. This means that these Geth fleets are jumping in hyperspace with their propulsion engines turned off and their shields raised. But we know that hyperspace jumps are actually sailing in hyperdimensional space, so why turn off the propulsion engines?" Galactic Peleon said. He pointed to the optical images detected by several sensors. "And you see, these Geth warships still maintained a neat battle formation after leaving hyperspace. But in fact, after the hyperspace jump ended, The hyperspace fluctuations caused by battleships will cause subtle differences in the coordinates of subsequent battleships after they leave. If the fleet is large enough, the difference in coordinates may reach tens of kilometers. In this case, it is impossible for the fleet to maintain such an orderly formation. So, Tarkin touched his chin, contemplating the possibility. So I judge that these Geth fleets are sailing faster than the speed of light in a relatively stable and static manner, Gilad Palayon concluded. Yes, this is probably not a hyperspace jump, but another means of traveling faster than the speed of light, Gilad Palayon said. If we judge based on this, then the planet Theta is the closest springboard to the planet Palan Manur in a straight line. So if this is the case, the Geth's attack on the planet Theta is not an act of plunder and harassment, but, Palayon paused, his face solemn, a determined effort to win. The communication room fell into a deathly silence. Gilad Palayon looked at Tarkin's face with anxiety. After several minutes, Wilhuff Tarkin finally spoke. I really want to label you as mentally ill and throw you directly into prison. However, there is another voice in my head telling me to believe your crazy rhetoric. Well, if I give you this chance and let you defend the planet Theta, how many troops do you need? Gilad Palayon responded without hesitation. A 300,000 clone army. And it must be Camino clones, not Spatty clones. According to my judgment, the Spotty clones are mentally unstable and will collapse at the first sign of the Geth. Wilhuff Tarkin laughed incredulously. 300,000? Do you know that even in the face of separatism, we have never deployed such a large number of clone soldiers on any battlefield? And don't forget, separatism also employs an army of robots. Palayon propped his hands on the console and said very seriously, Your Excellency, the Geth. They are not robots. They are completely different from all the races we know. They are another model of race. This is not a power battle. This is a race of races, a battle for survival. 300,000 troops may just be the beginning. Wilhuff Tarkin thought for a moment, then pressed a few buttons on the communicator. Soon, another person appeared in the holographic projection. An old man in his 50s, bald and thin. It was Palayon's immediate superior, the governor of the 7th Army, Marceline Wessel. But in front of Tarkin, the previously arrogant Marceline Wessel was replaced by a flattering demeanor. Governor Tarkin, it's been a long time. Excuse me, what can I do for you? Wessel asked. I will recruit Colonel Gilad Palayon and the 2nd Squadron of the 7th Army under his command to go to planet Theta for reinforcements, Wilhuff Tarkin said, not in a tone of discussion, but as a direct order. Marceline Wessel didn't dare to disobey. Naturally, I will immediately arrange for the 2nd Squadron to redeploy. However, the battleships of the 2nd Squadron are seriously damaged and currently lack combat power. I'll make up for it. That's it, Wilhuff Tarkin said curtly, then shut down the communication. Chapter 1588. Another front. After Wilhuff Tarkin ended the communication, Marceline Wessel turned to Gilad Perrine and said coldly, I don't know how your fallacies convinced Tarkin, or do you think my jurisdiction is too small to accommodate you? Your Excellency, Governor, I am very serious about the issue of the Geth invasion. We must block their advance on the planet Theta. For this reason, I am willing to go to the front line, Gilad Perrine said earnestly. Governor Wessel stared into his eyes for a long moment, then sighed. Very well. Do as you wish. You are aware that after the failure of the battle on planet Dolan, the strength of our 7th Army has been severely compromised. We have no spare forces to reinforce the 9th Army, and even now, we are still dealing with the refugees who escaped from planet Doran. If you have any ideas, take them to Tarkin yourself. I will definitely stop the Geth on planet Theta. Gilad Perrine declared firmly. Governor Wessel had a strange expression on his face. Do you really think Wilhuff Tarkin agreed to your plan because of the Geth? This, isn't it? Perrine was taken aback. You should consider another possibility, Marceline Wessel said. 9th Army Governor Dun Wessex has political power that rivals Wilhuff Tarkin's, and between him and Tarkin, it is still uncertain who is more favored by Palpatine. Therefore, Tarkin saw an opportunity to extend his influence to the 9th Army by capturing the planet Onderon and destroying the production line of the separatist Behemoth-class battlecruiser. What better excuse than the Geth to achieve this? Only then did Gilad Palaeon understand some of the political struggles behind the scenes. It turned out that Wilhuff Tarkin had readily agreed to his request and believed in his theory due to political factors. Cold sweat dripped down his back as he realized this. "Take care of yourself," Marcelin Wessel said. "Don't let yourself become a tool to be discarded when no longer useful. Planet Theta may not be that important in Tarkin's view." With that, he waved his hand and cut off the communication. "My lord, 10 billion air mines have been deployed around the planet Anji," a colonel officer reported to Tang Xiao respectfully. "Go and tell Volgograd Kennedy not to report such trivial matters to me again." Tang Xiao waved his hand dismissively. "What I am concerned about is the specific direction of this hyperspace channel directly opened by Master Yoda. Why haven't the astronomers answered me yet?" "My lord, I am not from the scientific research department, so I dare not speak out of turn," the colonel officer said. Tang Xiao waved his hand, and the officer quickly retreated. He was now in the capital of planet Anji, personally supervising the construction of the defense system. In his judgment, the Galactic Republic was likely to target the model sector again. However, both the General Staff and the Supreme Military Command had different opinions. When he consulted Volgograd Kennedy, the governor of the Model Star region, he also opposed Tang Xiao's judgment. The main reason was that the hyperspace channel opened by Master Yoda was gradually becoming chaotic over time. According to astronomers' predictions, this channel would disappear in half a year at most, and before that, it would gradually become unnavigable. This waterway was originally a very unstable seasonal route with almost no navigation value. However, under Master Yoda's extremely powerful force, he had forcibly isolated the mass projections of some stars in hyperspace, allowing spacecraft to pass through without being affected. As we all know, mass projections have no physical entity. To make a metaphor, the mass projection in hyperspace is like a black hole in the three-dimensional universe. When a spacecraft sails in hyperspace, if it encounters a mass projection, the projection is likely to be directly torn apart by the chaotic gravity. Master Yoda's use of the Force is to protect the spaceship from being affected in this section of hyperspace. Therefore, although it is theoretically possible to use the Force to open a hyperspace channel out of thin air, in reality, this requires an immense amount of power. Even if Master Yoda is stabilizing and widening an existing channel, one of the prerequisites is that there are not too many mass projections on this channel. Otherwise, the strength required might be beyond the capability of even 10 Master Yodas. Because of this, everyone believes that the Galactic Republic will not be able to launch a large-scale attack on the motor sector again. Instead of investing limited power in the motor sector, it is better to further consolidate the defensive power of the Eliadu Galaxy and the Yago-Dur Galaxy. After all, these two places are the most important strategic locations of the Principality of Liming. For this reason, Volgograd Kennedy even quarreled directly with Tang Xiao. The argument was so intense that Tang Xiao almost wanted to chop him up. Volgograd Kennedy has never been a person who is afraid of authority. He stands by his beliefs, which is why, before boarding the Mothership, he became a combat hero while also being considered an expendable asset. During the war with the Ailu people, Kennedy believed that Tang Xiao deliberately sacrificed some civilians to lure the Ailu people into fighting first, creating an excuse for war. This made him very dissatisfied at the time. Now, he thinks that Tang Xiao's hasty decision to focus defense on the Motor Star area is a disguised form of distrust. He believes Tang Xiao just wants to remove him and then consolidate his own power in the Motor Star area. Kennedy directly told Tang Xiao, "If you want to mess around like this, then I will simply quit as the governor of the motor sector, and you can handle it yourself." If it hadn't been for Tang Xiao's second trip to the planet Korriban, where the power of death had reached its peak and the influence of darkness on his emotions had diminished, Kennedy might have lost his head at that moment. But Tang Xiao remained sensible. After all, Governor Kennedy was doing a good job, and his request to consolidate the defense in the motor sector, which is considered the rear, seemed ridiculous to ordinary people. Tang Xiao knew this himself. So, after angrily slamming Kennedy into the wall, Tang Xiao grabbed him by the collar and told him that he would handle the defense of the Mater sector himself. He instructed Kennedy to focus on overseeing the rear area properly. After this unhappy confrontation, Volgograd Kennedy changed his way of communicating with Tang Xiao. He sent personnel to report to Tang Xiao on military affairs and defense matters. Thank you for the 100 reading points, rewarded by the high-ranking Lord of Tatarim. Chapter 1589, Doubt. A burst of white light flashed, and more than a dozen capital ships, accompanied by over 50 small and medium-sized warships, emerged from the hyperspace channel, appearing outside the planet Anji. Among this formidable fleet, one warship stood out, a massive, flat-shaped vessel. This battleship, measuring an astonishing 3,175 meters in length, was a flat rectangle in design. At the front, two separate hulls, with long protruding horns, extended forward. Despite its size, the battleship had few turrets. Instead, it featured a wide hangar platform at the front and one on each side. This layout could only belong to one type of warship, an aircraft carrier. Indeed, this colossal vessel was the Duchy of Liming's new generation aircraft carrier, the Archon class. The Archon class aircraft carrier was the latest achievement from the Solarian Warship Research Center. After extensive testing and verification, 2 prototype carriers had finally rolled off the production line and were now undergoing actual combat testing. Consequently, those commanding the Archon-class carriers were undoubtedly among the most powerful figures in the Principality of Liming. "General, we have arrived at the planet Anji," reported a navigator to a middle-aged man with thick eyebrows, big eyes, and a dignified appearance, standing at the center of the bridge. "All units, enter alert mode. First, everyone must move into the predetermined defense area, then dock one by one. There must be no confusion." Matt Horner stood upright in the center of the bridge, his hands behind his back. This was his habit as a soldier. Even in his high position, he maintained a meticulous state, taking every detail seriously, starting with his own posture. "Yes, General," the adjutant responded immediately and began relaying the instructions. "Remember, we are here on planet Anji, not for a vacation, but to deal with potential enemy attacks. All units must remain in a state of combat readiness at all times, with no more than 1/4 of the crew rotating at any given time," Matt Horner commanded. "Yes, General." The adjutant stood at attention and saluted. However, he then hesitated and asked, "But General, isn't the planet Anji in the rear?" Matt Horner glanced at him coldly and replied, "Before we set off, this topic was already discussed in the military meeting. The order of the soldiers is to obey. Since the order tells us to come and defend, then we are here to defend, not to vacation." "Yes, General." The adjutant puffed out his chest and responded loudly. Matt Horner habitually raised his wrist to check his watch, and then said, "Notify the entire army that at 8 o'clock in the morning Standard Time on the Dawn Star, we will conduct actual combat drills." "Yes, General." At this moment, a communications soldier approached and said, "General, Chief Assistant Helmut Zemo is on the confidential channel." "Proceed." Matt Horner waved his hand, then turned and walked towards the conference room. The door of the meeting room closed, the electromagnetic barrier was deployed, and the confidential communication mode was activated, ensuring that no one could eavesdrop. "I am very pleased to hear that you have arrived successfully, General Matt Horner," said a middle-aged man appearing in the holographic projection. He wore glasses, had meticulously groomed hair, a clean beard, and was dressed in a robe. This was Helmut Zemo, the chief assistant of the Duke of Liming's cabinet, and a trusted confidant and think tank of Duke Liming Tang Xiao. When he was first awakened, Zemo's appearance was unremarkable, blending into the crowd. However, with his rising stature and cultural influence, he had become a significant figure in the current era. In the Star Wars universe, his style has changed dramatically. During the development of Star Dawn, Zemo made many plans with his keen judgment and precise understanding of human nature and psychology. Many strategies and plans during the rise of Dawn Star and even the Fourth Civilization are inseparable from his key behind the scenes, and his loyalty to Tang Xiao is beyond doubt. Therefore, after the Duchy of Liming was formally established and Tang Xiao was sworn in as Grand Duke of Liming, he also bestowed the title of Baron upon Helmut Zemo. As a result, Zemo became a baron in name and deed, becoming the only person with a title in the Duchy of Dawn. Another person with a title is Professor Qi Jianjun, the founder of the scientific research work of the Fourth Civilization. This legendary figure, known for his rough style and fondness for little girls, who once drove Tang Xiao out of the house with his terrible snoring, has now retired and was awarded the title of Viscount by Tang Xiao. The late former naval commander, Igor Zavarov, was posthumously made a baron. This clearly shows Tang Xiao's preference for Helmut Zemo. It can be said that Zemo is Tang Xiao's right-hand man, and this is no exaggeration. Matt Horner looked at one of the most powerful people in the Principality of Dawn in front of him with a calm expression and said slowly, "I will be stationed in the Anji Galaxy to ensure that everything here is safe. This is my promise." "Master Tang Xiao will be very pleased to see your current state, Admiral Horner," Baron Helmut Zemo said with a smile. "It's hard to imagine that at the meeting of the Supreme Command, you were the one who opposed the plan the most. As a soldier, I will express my own opinions. That is my duty. And when the leader makes a decision, I will also implement the leader's decision. That is also my duty," Matt Horner said. "Haven't you ever thought that Lord Tang Xiao's decision might be wrong?" Zemo asked with an inexplicable smile. "Is it your duty to implement the wrong decision? You know, as a Navy Commander-in-Chief, you represent the entire Navy of the Duchy of Liming with every move you make." Matt Horner glanced at Zemo and said coldly, "It depends on who the leader is. The current Duke of Liming, Tang Xiao, I am willing to follow in his footsteps. Now, don't talk nonsense with me in circles. Get to the point. What are you looking for me for?" The smile on Helmut Zemo's face became strange. He paused for a moment and then said, "Actually, the Intelligence Department and the Ministry of Internal Affairs of the Principality of Dawn are seriously considering a possibility about Volgag Governor Lekanidi, the possibility of mutiny. Anyone who knows anything about Kanedi should understand that this is nonsense," Matt Horner said coldly. "So this is the difference between my job and yours, Admiral Horner," Helmut Zemo said. "I think only human nature. Drunk. No more today." These chapters will describe the political ecology of the Fourth Civilization, by the way. Chapter 1590, Seed of Rebellion. "I don't know where your doubts come from, and I also don't know why you told me this." Matt Horner's face turned cold and indifferent. "I hope you can cooperate with us in the collection of evidence and assist in our actions when necessary," Baron Helmut Zemo said. "Heh, which you are you referring to?" Matt Horner asked. "We" refers to the people who should deal with this matter. This includes, but is not limited to, the Ministry of Internal Affairs and the Military Intelligence Service. Helmut Zemo replied, his smile devoid of any warmth. "You want me to be your executioner? That's a joke. Volgograd Kanedi is someone who would never betray us. To him, betrayal is a more painful shame than death." Matt Horner's tone was filled with anger. "And you should understand who you are talking to right now. I am the Commander-in-Chief of the Duchy of Dawn. That's precisely why I'm here in person, speaking to you in a consultative tone," Zemo said. "If there's nothing else, I will end this communication," Matt Horner said coldly. "Chief Minister of the Cabinet, Baron Zemo. I sincerely suggest you listen to the reasons I am about to present, Admiral Horner," Zemo said calmly, showing no emotional fluctuations. Matt Horner's hand, which was reaching for the close button, stopped at the last moment. He turned his head and said, "Fine, I'm interested to hear your reasons for accusing Kanedi of betrayal. First of all, I need to correct one point. I am not accusing Kanedi, nor do I think he has betrayed us yet. I am guarding against what may happen in the future, such as during an attack by the Galactic Republic," Zemo explained. "Go on." Matt Horner's face darkened. "In my hand, I have a secret investigation report. In the model star area, the proportion of people who believe that this war was instigated by the Dawn Star and that they should not bear the responsibility for it has exceeded 50%. The Del Star region has become the area that accepts the most immigrants from the planet Rendili, and this ratio is still increasing," Zemo said, holding up a data memory. He continued, "Unlike Sisvena and Haven, which have been in the middle of the war, the model sector has only been providing money, supplies, and soldiers. The war seems distant to them. Additionally, the population of the Model Star District is mainly composed of foreign immigrants. Compared to the Model Star region that they reclaimed inch by inch, they don't have much sense of belonging to the Principality of Dawn. What I want to say is, Helmut Zemo's tone grew colder. Volgograd Kennedy, as the governor of the Star region, did not stop this trend of thought. Compared to the other two star regions, the ideological and political propaganda in the Model Star District has always been very scarce, and it can even be said that it has hardly been carried out. Matt Horner responded lightly. Volgograd Kennedy's character makes him never do anything that violates his own code of conduct. Of course, he will not engage in exaggerated or false propaganda. While I don't agree with his approach, this should not be a reason to accuse him of betrayal. So what about this? Zemo produced another piece of data. A medical report? Matt Horner frowned. This is the inspection report of Volgograd Kennedy's adjutant, He Yuan, Zemo said. She is pregnant. She is pregnant. Given the close relationship between her and Kennedy, the child she is carrying is likely to be Kennedy's. Matt Horner's focus shifted. He asked coldly, "Are you monitoring Kennedy? And you can even obtain medical examination reports? What about me? Are you also monitoring everything I do in detail?" Actually, there is a certain level of surveillance, but you are not on our list, so the level of surveillance is not high. In fact, this may have some benefits. Zemo said, like 2 months ago. Your fiancée, Mira Han, was ambushed while robbing a Hutt transport fleet. It was our people who secretly helped her out of one of those ambushes, Zemo said. So I should thank you for spying on me. Matt Horner's tone grew colder. Oh, you're welcome, Zemo responded with a smile. But let's get back to the main topic. We believe the appearance of this child will have some impact on Volgograd Kennedy. In our secret evaluation, He Yuan's score is not high. Unfortunately, Kennedy doesn't allow us to interfere in the personnel affairs of the model sector, and we don't think it's time for extreme actions yet. So, you hope that when I build the defense system on planet Anji, I will let Kennedy go by the way? And if necessary, even arrest him directly? You want me to take on the task of suppressing possible rebellions in the Modern Star area? Matt Horner asked. Indeed, Admiral Horner, Zemo replied. Matt Horner let out a cold laugh. It's not up to your Ministry of Internal Affairs to intervene in the affairs of our army. So, get out of here. With a snap, he slapped the console, shutting off the communication. After the screen faded, Matt Horner rubbed his forehead and sighed. You're a good general, a good governor, a good soldier, but you're also a damn bastard. Better not have the day I come to catch you. He calmed down, then left the spaceship, taking a shuttle to the capital of planet Anji. Arriving at Tang Xiao's temporary residence, Matt Horner took a deep breath, pressed the prompter, and only entered after receiving a response. My lord, I have arrived with the fleet and will take over the overall defense of the Anji galaxy from now on, Matt Horner said to Tang Xiao, who was standing in front of the window. As one of the opponents of this battle plan, I have entrusted you with this task. Can I trust your performance? Tang Xiao asked without turning his head. As a soldier, I will only put forward my own suggestions and resolutely implement the final decision, regardless of whether it aligns with my suggestions, and most importantly, I trust your strength and wisdom, Matt Horner said seriously. Chapter 1591, The Way of Leadership. So, both publicly and privately, this is why I can safely hand over the entire Liming Duchy's navy to you, Tang Xiao said. In this defense plan for planet Anji, I suggest that you also consider my power. If this invasion unfolds, some hidden forces of the Galactic Republic will undoubtedly join in. I will plan on this premise, but you are the absolute core and supreme leader of the Principality of Dawn, my lord. I still recommend that you act with your own safety as the priority, Matt Horner replied. I have my own considerations. You don't need to worry about the matter of the original force. I will handle it, Tang Xiao assured him. Yes, Matt Horner responded seriously. He then asked, My lord, about Volgograd Kennedy. Let me tell you something from the bottom of my heart, from the perspective of a friend, Tang Xiao interrupted. I don't think Volgograd Kennedy will rebel, but I won't stop Helmut Zemo's investigative actions. After all, the Mordell sector, let's not talk about rebellion. The germ of their independence is an objective fact. Matt Horner nodded. On the other hand, I can safely hand over the entire Dawn Principality's navy to you and trust every decision you make, but I will also not stop Zemo and the others from monitoring you, because the country is the country, and I am me," Tang Xiao continued. "There are many things that not only need to be explained to me, but also need to be explained to officials at all levels in the Principality of Liming, and even to every person." He turned around and looked at Matt Horner indifferently. "The existence of a country is a collection of interests. You can't make everyone loyal to you, but if the interests of most people are consistent with the country, then this country is united. Interests are always extremely cold and have no feelings at all. The bigger the country, the more ruthless it is. Although we are still very small in the Milky Way, for a country spanning thousands of galaxies, it is already massive enough to make it ruthless. But no matter what happens to the model sector, Kennedy will definitely not be involved, whether it's rebellion or independence." Matt Horner raised his voice. "Volgograd Kennedy has contributed a lot to the development of the model star area so far. I can even assert that no one else would have achieved such excellent results," Tang Xiao said. "Although the opportunity to perform is not frequent, he has shown the ability to command the battlefield no less than anyone else. But his ambition is not here. From the time he was first awakened, he expressed his desire to stay away from the battlefield and engage in production management. In the model district, he has proven that he is indeed a top manager." Tang Xiao casually pointed at the holographic star map. Compared to Graham, the governor of the Haven sector, who is a well-behaved administrative officer, and Ling Liang, the governor of the Siswena sector, as a military commander, Volgograd Kennedy is the most suitable all-rounder to become the governor of the star region. This is why I have been tolerating him. After all, the current model star region is the rear, but in the future it may become our forward base. Matt Horner nodded. "The exploration of the unknown star field. I understand that only a sufficiently powerful and developed model star field can undertake the important task of exploring the unknown star field. But," Tang Xiao's expression gradually became gloomy and cold, "this does not mean that my patience with the Mordell sector is unlimited. Therefore, regarding the things that Baron Zemo told you, my order is to do your job well as a soldier. As for other matters, there will naturally be experts to solve them." "Yes," Matt Horner straightened his chest and saluted. He was not surprised that Tang Xiao learned of his communication with Zemo almost immediately, because whether it was Zemo's notification or other means, Tang Xiao's network was extensive and efficient. Tang Xiao's control over domestic intelligence was a natural progression. For instance, the Ministry of Internal Affairs, which was established quietly, served as a means for Tang Xiao to strengthen internal control within the Principality of Liming. The head of this ministry was Tang Xiao's most trusted confidant, Helmut Zemo. This appointment alone demonstrated Tang Xiao's serious attitude towards the department. To outsiders, the Ministry of Internal Affairs might appear to be just another part of the cabinet. However, only those at Matt Horner's level understood that the reality was quite different. For the average person, the existence of the Ministry of Internal Affairs was completely unknown. Without Tang Xiao's reminder, Matt Horner was already aware that the once harmonious atmosphere aboard the Mothership, where everyone looked out for each other, no longer existed. Tang Xiao waved his hand and continued, "I will participate in the actual combat drill starting tomorrow." "Yes," Matt Horner responded. Meanwhile, on the northern border of the Milky Way, the planet Theta had become a battlefield. The fighting on the outskirts of the planet's capital, Chenesti City, had reached a critical point. The introduction of the Yamrui corpse puppets and the Geth forces had overwhelmed the clone soldiers, who were struggling to maintain their positions. After suffering the loss of over 10,000 soldiers, they were forced to withdraw from the city of Drafa. The Geth did not pursue them, but instead began a thorough cleansing of Drafa City. As the city burned, it became clear to everyone what a terrible fate awaited the millions of residents still trapped there. Reconnaissance footage later revealed thousands of dragon teeth erected throughout Drafa City, with the Geth impaling the corpses of the dead on them, creating more corpse puppets on the spot. The situation was dire. Seizing the brief respite, the clone soldiers began constructing a stronger line of defense. They built bunkers, established crossfire points, set up artillery and air defense positions, and fortified Chinesti City as much as possible. However, the Geth only gave them 3 days. 3 days later, the corpse puppet army resumed its assault, targeting Chinesti City, the last fortress on planet Theta. The clone troopers fought desperately and sent urgent messages to the gangsters and mercenaries in Chinesti City, pleading for reinforcements to help combat the Geth and corpse puppets. However, those gangsters and mercenaries, who had just escaped the horrors of Drapha City, were now paralyzed with fear. They had become like frightened ostriches, burying their heads in the sand, too terrified to stand up and resist. End of this chapter. Chapter 1592, Battle of Theta, Part 1. 1 o'clock direction. Fire! Hold on! Don't let them break into the range of 50 meters. The clone officer commanded loudly. Boom! Shh! Blaster rifles and rockets immediately fired in the indicated direction, decimating a large group of corpse puppets. The temporary delay in the corpse puppets' advance was soon followed by a whistling sound from above. Boom, 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 boom. A terrifying explosion completely engulfed the front area. Even with full coverage helmets, the clone troopers had to take cover to avoid being blown away by the blast. When they looked up again, the front was a sea of flames, with many buildings reduced to ruins. The group of corpse puppets that had been charging forward was now obliterated. But every clone trooper knew this was only the beginning. These zombie puppets, made from ordinary civilians, were used by the Geth to deplete their ammunition and expose their firepower positions. Sure enough, moments later, countless balls of light appeared in the sky, bypassing their frontline positions and targeting the rear artillery and hidden firepower points. Boom, boom, boom. Flames erupted from behind as both sides fired at each other furiously. Under the cover of numerous corpse puppets used as cannon fodder, the Yamrui corpse puppets, capable of short-distance flight, launched the next wave of attacks. The Geth also reappeared, moving extremely fast, even through the burning ruins. The clone troopers quickly realized these Geth were different from those they had encountered before. In addition to the most common Geth, there were those equipped with heavy firepower and elite Geth over 3 meters tall, covered in red paint. These elite units required the combined firepower of several teams to combat effectively. With the appearance of these more advanced and formidable Geth, the clone soldiers were forced to retreat steadily. In the space battlefield, Lieutenant Admiral Henderson led the Republic fleet against the Geth fleet. The situation was equally dire here. Geth warships were known for their ferocity and agility, making them formidable opponents. Their combat style favored close-range engagements, often disregarding formations to launch direct, frenzied attacks. To counter this, Lieutenant General Henderson concentrated all warships into a defensive formation, with a group of fighter jets guarding the fleet's perimeter. Under the cover of numerous fighter jets, they barely managed to resist the Geth's assault. However, the situation remained grim. Less than half a day into the battle, the Geth received reinforcements. More than a dozen warships appeared without warning and joined the fray. The two sides clashed fiercely for several hours until the systems on both sides' battleships overheated and could no longer be maintained, forcing them to separate and reorganize. Admiral Henderson's fleet paid a heavy price: the destruction of 3 Jaeger-class battlecruisers and 3 Arquitens-class light cruisers. In return, they destroyed 4 Geth cruisers, 1 destroyer, and 7 frigates. This exchange ratio was unfavorable for the Galactic Republic, especially considering that Geth cruisers were only 300-meter-long, medium-sized battleships. Additionally, the Republic fleet's fighters suffered significant losses, with over 1,500 fighters lost in the battle. If this trend continued, the lack of strong fighter support could place their warships in an even more precarious situation. Where did the Geth's reinforcements come from? Where did they come from? Why is there no response from the monitoring outpost? Lieutenant General Henderson demanded loudly. General, our hyperspace detection equipment didn't pick up anything. We've performed maintenance, and there's no issue with the equipment. Unless they didn't use hyperspace jumps, the commander of the monitoring outpost explained during the communication. Are you telling me that the Geth's warships are flying by sublight engines? Lieutenant General Henderson roared. General, we really don't know, the commander replied, looking distressed. In any case, I want you to increase your monitoring. Keep an eye on everything 24 hours a day. I can't face enemy reinforcements again and again without any warning. Henderson ordered loudly. Yes, sir. Turning back, Henderson continued, arrange for the damaged warships to go to the spaceport for repairs as soon as possible. Organize the rotation of injured personnel and complete the cooling and recirculation of the weapon and shield systems immediately. It's already arranged, General, but I'm worried. If we continue at this rate, our losses will increase. The durability of Geth battleships in each battle is higher than ours, and we also have to consider the physical endurance of our controllers. Many can't withstand high-intensity battles for several hours or even half a day. During this battle, our non-combat attrition reached over 2,000 people, the adjutant noted. We can still rely on the spaceport for supplies, while the Geth can only rely on their transport ships. That's our only remaining advantage, Henderson said. The ground battlefield must not be lost. Deploy 2 Jaeger-class ships into planetary synchronous orbit to serve as takeoff and landing platforms for ground support fighters. If necessary, we won't rule out using orbital bombardment to destroy the Geth ground forces. But in doing so, these 2 battleships will be vulnerable to Geth attacks. The 3 ships that have been withdrawn from the planet's surface haven't yet recovered their combat capabilities, the adjutant cautioned. Then that's something our fleet needs to consider. Let's proceed, Henderson commanded. Yes, sir. At that moment, the radar operator suddenly screamed, General, Geth reinforcements have appeared again, including 5 cruisers, 8 destroyers, 8 frigates, and 15 large transport ships. This is impossible, the adjutant exclaimed. Before Henderson could give an order, he immediately connected to the communication of the outer monitoring post and shouted, Why are the Geth reinforcements still appearing? Where is their assembly point? Which lane did they use? Why didn't the hyperspace blocker work? We have no response here, came the same answer from the outpost. Damn it, I will immediately send inspectors to your outpost to conduct a thorough investigation, the adjutant shouted. Sir, we really didn't find anything abnormal, the outpost personnel replied, feeling extremely wronged. General, Geth battleships are attacking us, and their transport ships are penetrating towards the planet, the radar operator shouted. Chapter 1593, Reinforcements. When Gilad Palayon arrived at the Phaeda Galaxy with his 2nd Squadron of the 7th Army, reinforced and strengthened by Wilhuff Tarkin, he was met with a tragic scene. The battle had spread to the vicinity of the spaceport located in the outer orbit of the planet. Wreckage of warships littered the space, but the battle raged on. A large group of Republic fighters attacked frantically, besieging the Geth warships. Fighter formations braved the dense anti-aircraft fire of the Geth warships, launching proton torpedoes and concussion missiles. The anti-aircraft firepower used by the Geth battleships consisted of X-ray turrets. The laser emitted by these turrets was almost invisible in the spectrum, making it seem from a distance that only the laser beams and missiles fired by Republic fighters surrounded the Geth battleships. In reality, every battleship was encased in a deadly net of fire. The remaining Republic warships included only 3 Jaeger-class battlecruisers, 4 Aquitaine-class light cruisers, and more than 10 smaller battleships. These ships could only linger around the spaceport, as the number of Geth battleships had reached over 30. If not for the fighter formations still fighting, these warships would have been annihilated long ago. The whole army advances at full speed. Assault! Destroy all Geth warships, ordered a general in his 40s, standing on the bridge of a Knight-class Star Destroyer, the flagship of the fleet. This was Wolf Yularen, Admiral of the Galactic Republic. After the planet Camino suffered a surprise attack and heavy losses, Wolf Yularen, who had commanded the Republic fleet during that battle, was temporarily sidelined and not allowed to command any battles. Although he did not take the blame for the failure, his sidelining was an expression of the Supreme Strategic Command's dissatisfaction with his leadership. However, Wilhuff Tarkin had requested the Supreme Strategic Command to reinstate Wolf Yularen, entrusting him to lead the fleet to reinforce the planet Phaida. Gilad Pellaeon, currently only a colonel, had been promoted from major by General Eureka before his death. Naturally, he was not qualified to command this massive fleet of 60 warships. General Yularen, I suggest that we should attack immediately, focusing on driving away the Geth fleet as soon as possible. Saving lives is the priority. We need to stabilize our position first, Gilad Pellaeon advised. I agree. Send the order. Let the ships focus on driving the enemy away, not chasing them, Wolf Yularen nodded. Before leaving, Wilhuff Tarkin had specifically instructed Wolf Yularen to heed Gilad Pellaeon's advice, implying that this promising young officer had potential. Wolf Yularen, experienced in both the political and military arenas, understood Tarkin's intentions. He also needed this battle to prove himself again, so he humbly accepted Pellaeon's suggestion. As the massive fleet, including 10 Knight-class star destroyers, advanced, the Geth fleet began to retreat towards the second satellite of the planet Phaida. The battle temporarily came to an end. The haggard face of Lieutenant General Henderson appeared on the communication screen. He gave a military salute and said, "This is Lieutenant General Henderson of the Republic Navy, 9th Army. Thank you for your reinforcements." If you had arrived a few hours later, the entire planet of Phaida might have fallen. Wolf Yularen returned the salute. "This is the 2nd Squadron of the 4th Army of the Republic. I am Admiral Wolf Yularen, and this is my adjutant, Colonel Gilad Pellaeon. Master Wilhuff Tarkin has sent us for reinforcements." He was now leading the fleet of the 4th Army, and Gilad Pellaeon had been temporarily transferred to Tarkin's command. Currently, they are subordinate to the 4th Army, which is unmistakable. Lieutenant General Henderson took an extra look at the young man standing next to Wolf Yularen. Generally speaking, the self-introductions of the commanders of both sides did not include their adjutants. Admiral Yularen's inclusion of this young man suggested that he had an extraordinary background. "How's the situation here?" Gilad Perrine asked eagerly, unable to wait any longer. Lieutenant General Henderson shook his head. "It's very bad. The ground battlefield is littered with injuries, and the flames of war have already reached the capital of the planet, Chinesti City. The clone army I brought has suffered heavy losses. It is already difficult to hold the front line. We can only delay time. And here, as you can see, the Geth reinforcement fleet keeps appearing, and we are powerless to resist." Admiral Wolf Yularen frowned. It stands to reason that the planet Phaida doesn't have a major hyperspace channel, and this place is also within the jurisdiction of the Republic. Geth suddenly attacking here doesn't make sense. Why is there no response from our hyperspace outpost? He looked back at Gilad Perrine. "It's true," Gilad confirmed. "Our hyperspace outposts can't detect the movement of the Geth fleet, and the hyperspace blockers we set up have no effect. We don't know where their warships are coming from." Lieutenant General Henderson shook his head. "If they continue to bring in reinforcements like this, we can only passively fall into a situation where both sides exchange war losses, which is extremely unfavorable to us." Gilad Pellaeon said, "We must make operational judgments based on the premise that the Geth have mastered a new way of traveling faster than the speed of light. But for now, we must first complete the arming operation, especially on the ground battlefield. The planet Phaida must not be lost." "Another means of traveling faster than the speed of light?" Lieutenant General Henderson was shocked by this statement. "We'll discuss this further later. I've already applied to the Scientific Research Department of the Republic to send physicists to study our situation. But for now, we need to deal with the most urgent matter. How many clone troops are there on the planet Phaida?" Gilad Pellaeon asked, immediately immersing himself in the command of the battle. His actions, though overreaching, were not opposed by Wolf Yularen, who had been briefed by Governor Tarkin and chose not to say much. Lieutenant General Henderson, seeing that Admiral Yularen did not object, assumed that this young man also had the same authority. He explained, "We brought a total of 5 Cheer-class assault landing ships and 120 transport ships, transporting a total of 80,000 clone soldiers, along with supporting armored vehicles and various supplies. However, It is difficult for us to guarantee air supremacy in the planet's atmosphere, so less than a quarter of the heavy armored vehicles can be deployed. The clone soldiers have also suffered heavy losses, and there should be less than half of their troops left. Where are the supply and armored transport fleets now? Gilad Perrine asked, frowning. After the battle broke out, I saw the Geth coming so fiercely that I ordered them to retreat to the planet Catharis, Henderson replied. Gilad Peleon's face changed. No way! We must immediately divide our forces to reinforce Catharis. Chapter 1594, Total War. Send troops to Catharis? Why? Lieutenant General Henderson still didn't grasp the gravity of the situation. The only navigable hyperspace channel from the planet Theta passes through Catharis, then Agama, before reaching Palin Minor, the capital of the Ninth Army. As long as we hold off the Geth fleet on Theta, they pose no threat to our rear. Gilad Peleon responded seriously. As I mentioned earlier, the Geth may have discovered a method of faster-than-light travel that we are unaware of. Facing such an enemy, we must understand that their range of action is no longer restricted by hyperspace channels. They can start from anywhere and appear anywhere. What did you say? Henderson was shocked. It wasn't his fault. Everyone in the galaxy would struggle to comprehend this sudden twist. It's like saying that cars, which we know run on roads, and trains, which run on tracks, can suddenly go off-road without tracks. Our first reaction would be confusion about how such a train would behave and where it would appear. From now on, every planet of ours is a battlefield, a front line. We have no rear in an absolute sense until we understand the principle and scope of the Geth's FTL travel, Gilad Peleon emphasized. That means even our supply transportation must be heavily escorted, Wolf Yularen said seriously. He turned to Henderson and added, we need to contact those transport ships immediately and send them to a safe place. No place is safe. Our fleet is the last safe haven. He then activated the communication system and issued instructions to another commander, ordering him to lead a fleet to Taris to protect the army supplies and heavy vehicle units. Gilad Peleon continued, we need to start landing as soon as possible. We have brought 300,000 clone troops, and they must all land within 2 days. General Henderson, you are more familiar with the situation here, and your cooperation is essential. The 300,000 troops need a garrison and a landing site. 300,000 clone troops? Lieutenant General Henderson was taken aback. As far as I know, the Galactic Republic has never deployed so many clone troops in a single battle. That's because our enemies are different this time, Gilad Peleon explained. How many ground troops do the Geth have now? Previously, there were about 6 to 8 million corpse puppets. The Geth's force was estimated at around 100,000. But after sending a large number of transport ships and successfully landing, I can't estimate their current numbers on Theta, Henderson replied. We need to mobilize everyone on the planet, every factory, every gram of food, every piece of metal, Gilad Peleon declared. Issue a general mobilization order, implement military control, and require all males aged 18 to 50 to join the army. Set age requirements for other races according to corresponding standards. Nationalize all factories, unify planning and output. Are you suggesting we send civilians to the battlefield and seize privately owned factories? That's absurd. The planet will fall into riots before the Geth even arrive. Lieutenant General Henderson couldn't comprehend such a war mode. No, we have to do this, Admiral Wolf Yularen interjected. Just like facing the Eternal Empire 3,600 years ago and the Sith Empire 1,000 years ago, the war with the Geth is a total war that threatens the survival of our civilization and race. Lieutenant General Henderson's face turned pale, and he nodded slowly. 1 day later, in Chinesti City, the capital of the planet Theta, middle-aged residents are requested to go to the nearest street to register immediately. Weapons will be distributed, and training will commence. A spaceship soared through the sky, equipped with a large holographic projection device beneath it. The device repeatedly displayed terrifying images of corpse puppets and the majestic soldiers of the Republic. The invasion of the Geth has left us with no option to retreat. We have no retreat, no surrender, no mercy. If we fail, everyone, it'll be turned into zombie puppets of the Walking Dead. It is impossible to evacuate an entire planet. The only thing we can do is resist. Resolute resistance. The Galactic Republic has sent millions of troops to reinforce us, but this is still not enough. We need everyone's support. We need every determined hand to unleash searing blasters on the brutal Geth. In every street and region, the Galactic Republic began setting up registration points, enrolling all people of the right age into the reserve force. They conducted simple training so that these new recruits could go to the battlefield. Long queues formed in front of the registration points, and every resident in line wore expressions of panic and confusion. For them, war had never been closer. Every man of school age is obliged to join the army and fight for our survival. All those who refuse to join the army will be arrested for crimes against civilization and will also be sent to the most dangerous front line. Spaceships flew at low altitudes everywhere, using high-powered loudspeakers and holographic projections to announce the conscription order, either motivating or coercing the populace. According to Gerard Perrine's plan, 250,000 of the 300,000 clone soldiers were assigned to rear conscription work, while only 50,000 soldiers joined Lieutenant General Henderson's 40,000 troops to continue building frontline positions. As conscription began, a large number of conscripted militiamen arrived at the front line, assisting in the construction of bunkers and positions. Over an inconspicuous building, a LAATI assault transport boat quickly flew over. A few clone troopers disembarked and broke through the door. Inside, dozens of mercenaries were getting drunk, empty wine bottles scattered everywhere, and a few women lay lifeless, having been played with to death. The clone commander stepped forward and announced, "You have been recruited. Please follow us immediately to the nearest station for reorganization." A fierce and burly man stood up, his face twisted in anger. "Do you know who we are? We are the Fire Steel Mercenary Group. We boom." His head exploded instantly. The clone commander turned the blaster pistol in his hand and said coldly, "From now on, your number is the Galactic Republic Theta Legion Fire Steel Combat Team. Return to the team immediately." End of this chapter. Chapter 1595, The Flame of War restarts. The gangster groups on the planet Theta were also attacked by clone troopers. The troopers arrived in assault transport boats, blasted open doors, and read the call-up orders. Those who dared to resist were killed on the spot. These gangsters, who usually terrorized civilians, were no match for the renowned Carmen Mino clone soldiers. Even if they tried to resist, the firepower of the LAATI assault transport craft hovering in midair was overwhelming. A few gangs were completely wiped out due to their resistance, while most surrendered without a fight and were taken to temporary barracks for training. After a brief period of training, they were ready to be deployed to the battlefield at any moment. Many of these gangsters and mercenary groups had previously resisted the attack of corpse puppets in Dropha City. After Henderson's clone troopers arrived to reinforce them, they retreated to Chinesti, harboring hatred for the Galactic Republic. However, after witnessing the overwhelming number of corpse puppets, the ferocious Yamu-Rui corpse puppets, and the cold-blooded and ruthless Geth, their courage evaporated, leaving only fear. As a result, many gangsters and mercenary groups began to hide in their strongholds, engaging in rampant looting and violence. They sought to indulge in chaos before their inevitable demise, disregarding the Geth entirely. For 2 days, Chinesti descended into chaos, with everyone locking their doors and fearing to step outside. In such a situation, the clone army brought by Lieutenant General Henderson could hardly expect support from the populace. For the other civilians on the planet, the problem was easier to solve. After subduing the gangster and mercenary groups, many of these individuals began to work as law enforcers. They were familiar with such tasks, knocking on doors, searching houses, and forcibly conscripting every able-bodied man. The clone troopers were no longer needed for these tasks and returned to the front lines, while the injured and disabled served as instructors in the barracks. Not all conscripted men were sent to the battlefield. Many were assigned to factories and farms to ensure logistical supplies for the war. Women were also organized to engage in productive work, including medical care, sanitation, and cooking. Gilad Peleon's strategy was to mobilize the entire planet's resources to fight the Geth to the death. Within 5 days, about 200,000 gang members and over 50,000 mercenaries were conscripted on Theta, along with more than 1 million non-combatants from these groups. With their help, over 7 million civilians were recruited into the militia. Most of these recruits were in the capital city of Chinesti, with plans to expand to other cities. The militia was tasked with building more barracks, constructing stronger fortifications, and further conscription efforts to mobilize even more men. General mobilization is a systematic process, typically taking 3 to 6 months. Without a pre-existing mobilization plan, it would take a long time to fully mobilize Theta's resources. However, the current efforts were better than nothing. For Gilad Palayon, the only good news was that the fleet he sent to the planet Kotaris did not encounter the Geth fleet and successfully delivered the supplies and reinforcements that Vice Admiral Henderson arrived with the heavy vehicle units. Although this batch of equipment and supplies was intended for the 80,000-strong clone troopers, the quantity was not overwhelming, yet it still represented a formidable force. However, bad news followed swiftly. As anticipated, their transport fleet began to be harassed by Geth warships. These Geth ships appeared suddenly, without using any known hyperspace lanes, making them elusive targets. Admiral Wolf Yularen had to dispatch additional warships to form an escort fleet to safeguard the transport fleet's navigation. During concentrated reconnaissance, the Republic defenders finally observed that the Geth battleships, which appeared suddenly, seemed to perform hyperspace jumps when they retreated. They needed to leave the planet's gravity well before initiating their jumps. Interestingly, no hyperspace fluctuations were detected by any instruments or equipment when they departed. This confirmed that the Geth warships were not using traditional hyperspace jumps. The observation results were promptly sent to the Scientific Research Department of the Galactic Republic. Speaker Schiff Palpatine took this matter very seriously and personally ordered the department to uncover the principles behind the Geth's faster-than-light travel within a month. 6 days after Gilad Palayon's reinforcements arrived, the Geth launched another attack. This time, their assault was not limited to Chinesti City, but targeted several cities simultaneously. It was evident that the Geth had been reorganizing and redeploying their forces over the past few days. Their strategy was to expand the front line and capture more cities to obtain additional corpse materials. The clone army, along with the conscripted militia, began to resist desperately. The militia's role was straightforward. They were provided with sufficient weapons and assigned to less critical positions, where they were instructed to fire at the attacking corpse puppets and Geth. Among these recruited militiamen, there was even a B-1 combat robot. These robots were widely sold across the galaxy, often purchased by mercenary groups and gangs as enforcers. On the battlefield, some militiamen preferred the company of B-1 combat robots over other unreliable militiamen, as at least the B-1 could take a bullet for them. In the initial waves of offensives, the addition of a large number of militias yielded significant results. They increased the firepower density of the Republic Army, which was crucial in battles where corpse puppets were used as cannon fodder. Simultaneously, in space, the Geth fleet launched another attack. However, with Gilad Palayon's powerful fleet present, the Geth warships focused on harassment, primarily to prevent the Republic warships from conducting orbital bombardments. As the fierce battle raged on the planet Theta, a special communication was received on Coruscant, the capital of the Galactic Republic. Wilhoff Tarkin, the governor of the Fourth Army, was contacted by Dun Wessex, the governor of the Ninth Army. Thank you for the generous reward of 2,100 starting coins. Chapter 1596, Fighting Openly and Secretly. I have to say, your timing is impeccable, Governor Tarkin, Dun Wessex said coldly. The planet Theta is attacked, and your fleet arrives almost immediately. Anyone who didn't know better might think the Geth tipped you off. Chairman Palpatine tasked me with reinforcing the battle against the Northern Geth, and I must fulfill my duty, Tarkin responded with a half-smile. Moreover, I have reliable information that the Geth have developed a new means of faster-than-light navigation. If the planet Theta falls, they could strike directly at your homeworld. You wouldn't look so good in front of Speaker Palpatine then, would you? So, you believe our Ninth Army can't repel the Geth invasion? Dun Wessex retorted. Not at all. I just think you haven't grasped the severity of the situation, Wilhoff Tarkin replied. Also, isn't the main fleet of your Ninth Army still engaged with the Separatists? Can you call them back? I've already dealt with the Separatist forces within the Ninth Army's jurisdiction. I don't need a failure like you to worry about it. I'm more concerned that one day you'll lose even the Fourth Army and then try to take over the First Army. Ha! Dun Wessex sneered. You should pay more attention to Kuat. They might soon understand what real separatism is. Don't let your little lover get caught up in it, Tarkin said meaningfully. Humph. Dun Wessex's face darkened at the mention of his girlfriend, Lila Blissex. This is a top priority for the Republic. Don't spread baseless rumors, otherwise the Intelligence Department will look very bad. In that case, let me assist you with Planet Fida. You're welcome, Tarkin offered. Mind your own business. Overreaching can lead to a downfall. Dun Wessex snapped and ended the communication. Hey! Wilhoff Tarkin looked at the now dark screen with a mocking smile. Just a spoiled brat. His assistant approached, bowing respectfully. Your Excellency, Colonel Gilad Palaeon just called. He reported that the number of Geth on planet Fida is increasing. He hopes we can prepare for more reinforcements. Tarkin waved dismissively. I gave him 300,000 troops. If that's not enough, then it's excessive. Yes, of course, the assistant nodded in agreement. Tell him that Governor Dun Wessex is very displeased with our current actions. If he needs reinforcements, he should go to Dun. I can't help him now, Tarkin said slyly. I understand, Your Excellency, Governor, the assistant replied with a knowing smile. If the battle on planet Fida goes poorly, the Ninth Army will be in disarray. But we, being farsighted and magnanimous, will come to their aid. At that point, the speaker will see who the real incompetent one is. Tarkin looked at him coldly. Are you suggesting I would let my colleagues lose a battle? Who gave you the nerve? I'm sorry. I misspoke. The assistant's face turned pale. With his hands behind his back, Tarkin walked to the window, gazing at the bustling scene outside. Dun Wessex, you are too close to Kuat. Whether for me personally or for the Galactic Republic, this is not a good thing. The speaker has a particular fondness for the battleships designed by Lila Blissex, but you and I both know their true worth. I just want to warn Dun not to overstep. And the military operation at the Kuat power dock? The assistant asked cautiously. Onana Kuat's influence is too extensive. Does she think that with the Ninth Army's support, she can meddle in our military affairs? Moreover, it's not her supporting the Ninth Army, but Lila Blissex. This is a path to destruction. Tarkin's face was extremely cold. Governor Dun Wessex of the Ninth Army had a close relationship with Palpatine and wielded significant power, so Tarkin had to tolerate him. However, Dun had recently overstepped his bounds, even supporting a highly risky military operation at the Kuat Power shipyard. This was a direct challenge to the military's authority. Tarkin decided to teach Dun a lesson through the upcoming battle on planet Fida. He didn't believe that Dun, with his deep connections and the formidable strength of the Ninth Army, would lose his capital, Palin Manur. At most, Dun would suffer a setback. The 300,000 clone army and the powerful fleet, which included more than 40 Jaeger-class battlecruisers and 10 Knight-class Star Destroyers, were Tarkin's political leverage. If they won, Tarkin would be celebrated for foreseeing the Geth's actions, predicting their moves, and successfully blocking them. In a time when the Geth were causing chaos in the north and turmoil was widespread, such a victory would be unparalleled. If they lost, it would be seen as the Ninth Army's own incompetence. Even with the support of the Fourth Army, failing in their own territory would reflect poorly on them, not on Tarkin. Palpatine would not blame Tarkin for the failure, as he had provided genuine military support. After contemplating for a while, Tarkin said, "Send a message to the Republic Ship Supervision Committee and ask them to allocate part of the military orders to Sienna Fleet Systems. The Vindicator-class heavy cruiser? Tell the Sienna folks that I'm interested. The Fourth Army will order 50 units first." "Understood. I will arrange it immediately," the assistant replied respectfully. Tarkin narrowed his eyes and muttered to himself, "Kuat power dock." This time, their military operation, whether they win or lose, is likely to bring about significant changes. But no matter what, Onana Court will always be the loser. It depends on you, whether you will rise to your peak or fall. In the core circle of the Milky Way, in an uninhabited galaxy with the astronomical code T6652U7849L, a massive engineering ship emerged from the hyperspace channel. The ship bore the logo of the Kuat power dock and used 8 sets of tractor beams to drag a colossal part directly towards the galaxy's star. The area around the star was bustling with activity. Numerous engineering ships were engaged in intensive construction operations. In the perihelion orbit, less than 30 million kilometers from the star, a gigantic space structure was gradually taking shape. Chapter 597, One Last Strike. The uninhabited galaxy had been overtaken by a vast number of spaceships from the Kuat power dock. More than a dozen large space stations had been constructed close to the stars, serving as living and entertainment quarters for the workers and engineers involved in the project. The sheer number of workers and spaceships indicated the construction of an incredibly massive facility. This facility, currently appearing as a dish-shaped structure with a diameter exceeding 20,000 meters, was a colossal undertaking. All construction activities were carried out in the perihelion orbit. To prevent powerful stellar radiation from interfering with the project, over 10 umbrella-shaped spaceships were deployed near the construction site. These spacecraft supported a deflector shield with extensive coverage protecting the construction personnel and equipment from harm. Maintaining these shield spacecraft required continuous replacement of shield capacitors, a cost that was already astronomical. Additionally, several energy extraction devices were being built closer to the stars, relying entirely on robots for construction. The energy level of these devices was exceptionally high, indicating that they were not intended to meet the energy needs of the construction area or other planets, but rather to support a project that consumed even more energy. The engineering ships were constantly busy, with more than 5 million people, including workers, technicians, scientists, and various personnel needed to maintain life, participating in this engineering project. The salaries of these individuals alone represented a significant cost. For the sake of confidentiality, all participants were not allowed to leave until the project was completed. To ensure their cooperation, the only solution was to spend money. With an almost endless supply of funds and materials, this enormous project was completed in this uninhabited galaxy in just 2 or 3 months. It was a testament to the terrifying industrial strength of the Kuat power shipyard. On the bridge of a Knight-class star destroyer stationed on the planet, Lila Blissix faced a holographic projection of a middle-aged woman in elegant attire, Onana Quarter, the current head of the Kuat power dock. Ninth Army Governor Dun Wessex has persuaded Speaker Palpatine on our behalf. The Supreme Strategic Command of the Galactic Republic has officially approved our application. All levels of officers and combatants from the Army and Navy have assembled in Coruscant and will be in place in 4 days, Lila Blissix reported. What are the conditions? Onana Quarter asked directly. She viewed this military operation to attack the model sector as her last trump card, not only due to the political pressure from Gideon Danu, but also because of the pressure from the Duchy of Dawn. Onana Quat was no fool. She knew that Gideon Danu did not have ambitions to replace her. However, the problem was that as Gideon Danu represented Quat in the Galactic Council, his increasing accolades and special deeds contrasted sharply with her own image, making her appear as a negative example. If this continued, even if Gideon Danu had no intention of usurping her, his supporters would push him to the forefront. On the other hand, the situation with Dawn Star was dire. The Galactic Republic's fleet had suffered repeated defeats in the direction of Dawn Star, primarily due to the significant disparity in battleship performance. Dawn Star boasted 2 types of Titan battleships, while the Galactic Republic had none. After finally constructing a prototype of the Eclipse-class ship, it was blown up. Onana Quarter herself knew that the destruction of the Eclipse-class prototype was actually a blessing in disguise. Publicly, she scolded Lila Blissix and reprimanded her, but in reality, she couldn't criticize Lila too harshly. This wasn't about doubting Lila's abilities. It was because, despite Palpatine and the Council's fascination and belief in the project, Onana knew that completing the Eclipse C-class within a year was impossible. No genius, no matter how talented, could achieve that. Due to a series of failures, some voices in the Parliament began to question the design and manufacturing capabilities of the Kuat Power Shipyard. If the technological gap with Dawn Star couldn't be closed, and as the Republic continued to face defeats on the front lines, these voices would only grow louder. When these criticisms reached their peak, Onana herself wasn't sure if she could withstand the pressure from the Republic. Even in the best-case scenario, she might be sidelined like the Rendili Interstellar Power Company. Given the strength of the Galactic Republic, building another Kuat power dock wouldn't be difficult. Sienna Fleet Systems, which was rapidly rising, was a potential competitor. Not to mention the Corellia Engineering Company, one of the oldest industrial giants in the Republic's history, which could easily replace the Kuat Power Shipyard. Currently, they were quietly profiting in the civilian spaceship and small to medium-sized warship markets, avoiding direct confrontation with the government's favored Kuat Power Dockyard. Their reluctance to compete wasn't due to inability, but rather a strategic choice. For these reasons, Onana Quarter had to make a last-ditch effort to defeat the Duchy of Dawn and acquire their advanced battleship technology. Only then could the status of the Kuat Power Dock be maintained. Upon learning through various channels that the Supreme Strategic Command had drawn up a plan to raid the model sector, she decided to seize this opportunity. However, despite her efforts to leverage her connections, the results were not ideal. Even when she approached the Republic's Minister of Population, her direct intervention in military affairs was not accepted. Under such circumstances, despite her immense frustration, Onana Quarter had no choice but to negotiate terms with Leela Blissex. Note: in the original plot, although the situation of the Kuat Power Dock wasn't as dire, Onana Quarter still couldn't withstand the pressure from the Republic and stepped down sadly at the end of the Clone Wars. If it weren't for her nephew, Little Quarter, and his ruthless methods, the Kuat Power Shipyard would have been taken over by the Galactic Empire at that time. Chapter 1598, Insatiable Greed. Conditions? Lila Blissex raised an eyebrow, amusement flickering in her eyes. Not long ago, Onana Quarter had summoned her to the central hall of Quarter, showcasing a set of masquerades. Now, the tables had turned. What conditions could I possibly put forward? I'm just doing my best for the Kuat Power Shipyard, Leela replied sarcastically. We're in this together now. Onana Quarter slammed her hands on the table, leaning towards the screen. Don't forget, the warships fighting on the front lines are also your designs. If the reputation of the Kuat Power Dockyard is tarnished, do you think you can escape unscathed? You've proposed the Executor-class Star Destroyer plan, with design and construction costs running into hundreds of billions. Is there anyone else in the galaxy who can fund you? So, I have no conditions, Lila said calmly. If this campaign succeeds, it benefits us both, doesn't it? My fiancé, Dun Wessex, has already given you his advice. There's no need to come to me. I'll complete the hyperspace stabilizer on schedule. She emphasized the word fiancé, subtly highlighting her elevated status. Very well, I'll have a good talk with Governor Dunn, Onana Quarter said, her face darkening. She nodded and ended the communication after a few polite words. As soon as the screen went dark, she cursed. Leela, you bitch, you bastard. In truth, the more Lila insisted she had no conditions, the more she was playing a dangerous game. The hyperspace stabilizer was the price already paid. Despite Lila's assurances that she would complete the project on schedule, the stabilizer was actually the latest achievement of the Hyperspace Research Department of Kuat Power Dockyard, unrelated to Lila. She was merely supervising and claiming credit for the work. For this uncertain battle, the invention and construction of a hyperspace stabilizer was a safeguard. Even if the battle failed, having this credit would mitigate the blame. Allowing Lila to oversee the project was Onana Quarter's concession. Yet, Lila's refusal to set conditions was a form of manipulation, implying either the conditions offered were insufficient or that Onana couldn't provide what she truly wanted. The more polite Lila was, the more it infuriated Onana. Essentially, Lila was given a significant project like the hyperspace stabilizer, but all Onana got in return was a chance to negotiate with Dun Wessex. The funds involved in this project were at least 50 billion credit points, and now the authorship was handed to Lila. For her, the money was secondary, the reputation was the real prize. Onana Quarter had no choice but to negotiate with Dun Wessex, a governor deeply trusted by Speaker Palpatine, to secure military permission to participate in the Battle of the Mordell sector. Surprisingly, Dun Wessex was easy to deal with, agreeing to Onana's request with minimal conditions. The first condition was an investment in the planet Palin Minor, essentially a bribe. The amount wasn't even discussed. Both parties knew the appropriate figure, typically several hundred million credit points. For Onana, money wasn't an issue. The second condition was a separate order for warships for the Ninth Army. This was standard practice. Most star governors ordered warships to expand their fleets. The strength of the local governors is significant, as they control the tax revenue of entire regions, making it easy for them to purchase warships. This essentially gives them private armies. Not only the governors of the Star District, but many powerful planets also order warships individually. However, due to limited resources, these planets generally buy second-hand or small to medium-sized warships. These vessels form the backbone of the local defense fleets. When the Speaker of the Republic, Schiff Palpatine, nationalized the local defense fleets, it wasn't merely about integrating the army. He effectively seized the warships that the planets had paid for themselves, which was akin to outright robbery. The third condition, presented by Dun Wessex, was more nuanced. He stated that due to political positioning, he could not publicly participate in the battle. He requested that Onana Quarter not involve him or the Ninth Army in the campaign. However, if the battle were to be a significant success, the Ninth Army would not step forward to claim credit. On the surface, it seemed that Dun Wessex was trying to protect himself, akin to someone helping you discreetly, hoping that no one else would find out. Although Onana Quarter found this condition somewhat strange, she had limited options and agreed. Dun Wessex was straightforward, informing her that the authorization from the Supreme Strategic Command would be issued the next day. He also mentioned that he would arrange for some retired senior military officers and top students from the military academy to go to Kuat Planet in their own names to support the campaign. Onana Quarter was elated to have achieved her goal, but she failed to notice the sneer on Dun Wessex's face. Upon closer examination, it becomes clear that the third condition was the most perilous. While it appeared that Dun Wessex was distancing himself, he could still reap the benefits of victory through Lila Blissex. Onana Quarter, however, would bear the responsibility for the battle. If anything went wrong, she would face the wrath of the Galactic Republic. Meanwhile, Lila Blissex could potentially advance her position further. Although Lila Blissex might not have the reputation to become the head of Court, she could become a significant figure within the Quarter power dock, potentially influencing its decision-making. Indeed, both Dun Wessex and Lila Blissex had conditions that were more ambitious than they initially appeared. Their ultimate goal was control over the Kuat power dock. Chapter 1599. The Army is Ready. A large number of spaceships flew out from the Mavastraville star ring on the planet Kuat, their numbers calculated in the tens of thousands. Even for the Kuat power shipyard, which is now at its peak, the deployment of spaceships on this scale was unprecedented. There were warships fresh off the production line, supply ships loaded with various provisions, and a multitude of transport ships filled with combat robots. Such a grand occasion could be witnessed on fewer than 10 planets in the entire galaxy. Most of these other planets achieved such magnitude due to their large populations, such as Coruscant with a population of 1 trillion, Lundili with 600 billion, and Nasada with 100 billion. With such a huge population base, it was not surprising to see a lot of spaceships coming and going around these planets. However, planet Kuat had a population of only 3 billion. To maintain the lives of these 3 billion people, not many spaceships were needed. The tens of thousands of spaceships taking off from here purely embodied the planet's industrial strength. In the quarter-industrial star ring, a luxuriously decorated building in the administrative district housed a young man with a feminine appearance. He was dressed in fine clothes, wore a high hat, and had exaggerated earrings. This was Onanat's nephew, Court Jr., the senior director of Kuat Power Shipyard. At this moment, he looked at the countless spaceships flying out of the window, his eyes full of coldness. When my aunt sat at the poker table, she had already lost, little Court said coldly. Behind him stood 4 people respectfully, all high-ranking core management members of the Kuat Power Shipyard. Indeed, Onana Court shouldn't have gambled. Even if the performance of our battleship can't compare with Dawn Star, at worst, we could have taken a step back temporarily and let other companies join. There was really no need to end like this, one of the elders said. If we lose this bet, Kuat Power Shipyard will suffer heavy losses, and we won't be able to suppress the rise of other companies, another old man added. Little Court continued to gaze at the sky, at the star-like engine flames, and said, "From the perspective of Kuat Power Dock, it is true. But from the perspective of Onana Court, if she failed in the battleship performance competition of the planet, she would have reached the end. Therefore, she gambled for herself, not for Kuat Power Dock." "This is even more unacceptable," another elder exclaimed. "Get ready. Make arrangements, and I will meet with Gideon Danu to discuss the next move," Little Court said, turning to face them. "Kuat Power Dock must not fall into outsiders' hands, whether it is the Galactic Republic or someone else." "You mean Lila Blissix and Dun Wessex?" the first elder asked. Little Court picked up a glass of wine, took a sip very gracefully, and said, "They have planned a lot, but if they weren't foolish, they wouldn't have taken that last step by themselves. Cooperating with me is their only choice. And for me, as long as I can get an order from the military, it doesn't matter if the order is because of the excellent performance of the warship or because she has climbed to the top of the political core of the Republic. But your step seems to set us too low," the elder sighed. "We have put in countless efforts to bring Kuat Power Dockyard to this day. Could it be that in the end, we still have to rely on outsiders?" Little Court smiled. He didn't speak, but placed the unfinished wine glass in the elder's hand and then walked out. This inexplicable action left the elder a little confused. Holding the wine glass, he didn't know what to do for a while. He dared not drink it, nor throw it away. As Little Quarter walked out the door, the middle-aged man next to him remarked, "At the peak, it's wise to take a step back. Little Quarter is the only one who can see this level. Our biggest threat is always the Galactic Republic, not some Dawn Star." He flicked his Ella-filled wine glass, producing a crisp sound. "Look, isn't this us?" Several people retreated, leaving only the old man deep in thought. 3 days later, in the unmanned Galaxy T652U7X849L, the scene had drastically changed. Unlike a few days ago, when transport and engineering ships were everywhere, an enormous fleet had begun to assemble. The fleet boasted over 150 capital ships of the Kilometer class, and the number was still growing. Countless transport ships busily ferried supplies to the battleships, which were in the final stages of combat preparation. In a massive space station, Onana Court, the leader of the Kuat Power Dock, had arrived in person. She and Lila Blissix were discussing the upcoming battle. On the surface, they appeared harmonious and happy. At that moment, the door of the command center opened. 2 teams of well-trained soldiers trotted in, lined up on both sides, stood upright, and saluted in unison, "General Tag is here." Onana Court and Lila Blissix turned to look at the door. 4 people walked in, surrounded by soldiers. 2 of them wore black robes. One was tall and strong, the other short and stout, but their faces were obscured by hoods. The leader, wearing the uniform of a Republic general, appeared to be about 30 years old. Despite his youth, the badge on his uniform indicated he was already a lieutenant general. Achieving such a rank at his age suggested a combination of connections, extraordinary abilities, and timely opportunities. Indeed, Cassio Tage had all these attributes. He hailed from a powerful family in the galaxy's core circle, the Tag family, which owned the influential Tag Company, a mining-based enterprise. He was also a close friend of Dun Wessex, governor of the Ninth Army. Additionally, he was a top student at the Republic Military Academy, ranking first in his class with an absolute advantage in grades, earning the title of Tactical Genius. For this military operation, under the influence of Dun Wessex, the Supreme Strategic Command agreed to let the Kuat Power Shipyard execute the plan. However, this meant that generals could not be directly dispatched from the military to command. Thus, finding someone from the military academy became the best solution. Consequently, Cassio Tage was temporarily appointed as a lieutenant general under the influence of many relationships and became the commander-in-chief of this operation. Chapter 1600, The Genius General. Cassio Tag was indeed feeling triumphant, believing he had reached the pinnacle of his life. As a top student at the Republic Military Academy, he had secretly joined the army against his family's wishes. His parents had both died in an accident, leaving his older brother as the head of the Tag family. While his brother preferred that Cassio pursue a career in business to help manage the family estate, Cassio had always felt that his true calling was in the military. The outbreak of war solidified his resolve. After studying business with his brother for several years, Cassio ran away from home and enrolled in the Republic Military Academy. At that time, the war had been raging for less than a year. At the academy, Cassio's talents shone brightly. He ranked first in all subjects, a rare feat even in the academy's long history. During his 2 years of study, he broke numerous records, graduated with honors, and formed connections with influential figures like Dun Wessex. Being of similar age, Cassio and Dun developed a good relationship, with Dun hoping to strengthen ties with the Tag family through Cassio. After graduation, Cassio, like other graduates, was assigned to rear-line duties such as combating interstellar pirates, maintaining law and order, and escorting caravans. Thanks to Dun Wessex's influence in the military, Cassio often had the opportunity to command the escort fleet during missions, which he executed flawlessly. On one occasion, his convoy encountered pirates with superior strength, but under Cassio's command, they annihilated the pirates, a feat he often boasted about. Cassio frequently expressed his ultimate dream, to defeat Severance Tan, the top separatist general on the battlefield. He considered it a great honor to face Tan head-on. However, he was aware that he still had a long way to go and often mentioned that he needed more opportunities to grow and gain experience. Typically, he would need at least 2 or 3 years to settle into his role before the Republic military would consider sending him to the front lines. But then, an unexpected opportunity arose. The Supreme Strategic Command of the Republic decided to entrust the attack on the Mater sector to the Kuat Power Shipyard. Since this battle was to be commanded by a company like Kuat, it was unlikely that senior officers would be assigned. Similar to the planetary defense fleet of the Lundili Galaxy, where the commander was merely a lieutenant colonel, the military and corporate sectors were to remain distinct. Seizing this chance, Dun Wessex used his connections to recommend Cassio Tag. Cassio's excellent academic record and his impressive performance in combat against bandits made him an ideal candidate. Moreover, he had no official military rank yet, making him a perfect fit for the role. Finding someone who was capable, widely accepted, and without a military rank was no easy task. This was a golden opportunity. With the support of Kuat Power Dockyard's formidable industrial capabilities, Cassio would command an exceptionally large fleet, a privilege even most of the Republic's admirals rarely experienced. If he succeeded in achieving the campaign's objectives, or even part of them, Cassio would return with honor and almost certainly be promoted to general, at the very least to major general. This was a far better opportunity than slowly climbing the ranks and accumulating records in the military. Cassio Tag's moment had arrived. In order to compensate for Cassio Tag's lack of experience, Dun Wessex recruited a veteran named Laszlo Doritz to be his adjutant. Laszlo Doritz had participated in the Stark Hyperspace War more than 20 years ago. That tragic war laid the foundation for the current generation of officers in the Galactic Republic. Many officers had, to some extent, participated in that war. However, for Laszlo, it didn't matter that he had no money. After working hard on the battlefield, he was left with nothing but a pension and a medal. Those with connections, on the other hand, prosper, and were promoted because of the war, becoming the core force of the Great Republic Army under Schiff Palpatine's Military Creation Act. When Dun Wessex brought Laszlo on board, he saw potential in him. Laszlo had no military rank and was just a retired soldier, so there were no issues with recruiting him. After investigation, it was found that Laszlo Doritz was brave and resourceful in combat, making him an excellent soldier. Therefore, he was deemed perfect to be Cassio Tag's adjutant. Accompanying them were two men in black robes, one tall and the other short and stout. They were experts sent by Speaker Palpatine's advisor. Dun Wessex didn't know the true identity of this mysterious consultant, but knew that the person was very powerful and important. The presence of such experts indicated Speaker Palpatine's determination to win. Thus, the four of them became the core team for the battle plan in the model sector. This combat plan was highly confidential, known to fewer than 100 people in the entire Republic. Only top officials like Onana Quarter and Dun Wessex had any knowledge of it. The operation was codenamed Scavenger Plan. At the same time, in the conference room of the Supreme Military Command on Dawn Star, all senior military officials of the Principality of Dawn gathered to discuss their next military action plan. During the last summit of this level, Tang Xiao had deduced from various clues and his knowledge of the plot that the Galactic Republic must be in chaos due to the extermination of the Territory Warriors. Consequently, he decided to have the military execute a raid plan against the Galactic Republic. Qi Jian, the chief of the General Staff, quickly formulated the plan, which was to be executed by Ling Liang, the governor of the Sisvena sector. This led to the Battle of Eneco. There were many coincidences during this battle, and the final result was that the main fleet of the 17th Army of the Republic was severely damaged. Additionally, the fleet stationed on the planet Kira was thrown into disarray. Chapter 1601, Military Council. During the Battle of Eneco, Admiral Corney, the commander of the main fleet of the 17th Army, found himself cut off from his supply line. He was ambushed from behind by a surprise fleet sent by Ling Liang, resulting in a two-sided attack. Due to a series of previous offensive actions, the main fleet's supplies were significantly depleted, with some warships unable to even replace their shield capacitors. Although the supply line had been re-established in the rear, Ling Liang seized this critical opportunity to launch an attack before the supplies could arrive. She forced Admiral Corney into a decisive fleet battle under extremely unfavorable conditions, and the outcome was inevitable. The main fleet of the 17th Army suffered heavy losses. Admiral Corney struggled to maintain the last core of his fleet, the three Commander II class dreadnoughts. Ultimately, he managed to bring back about half of the warships, but they were severely damaged. One of the three dreadnoughts was destroyed, and another was badly damaged. The original plan for the Battle of Eneco was intended to be a harassment operation, but Admiral Corney made a series of poor judgments when his supply line was cut off. General Ling seized this opportunity and inflicted severe damage. Had Corney held out for just a few more hours, the situation might have been different. Tang Xiao had tasked the military with completing a surprise attack, and General Ling exceeded expectations. Under these circumstances, the actions of the Galactic Republic became predictable. For the Duchy of Dawn, this was advantageous. The Galactic Republic was certain to launch a powerful offensive against the Duchy of Dawn soon. They could not allow the Principality of Dawn to declare its founding unchallenged and would definitely respond. Additionally, they would not ignore the Confederation of Independent Galaxies. At the time of the Supreme Military Conference, the Galactic Republic had already begun military operations against General Grievous's main fleet stationed on the planet Salukami. Furthermore, the warships of the Duchy of Dawn had shown superior performance compared to those of the Galactic Republic, which heightened the Republic's sense of crisis. Despite the war having raged for over 2 years, the Galactic Republic had never truly considered the Dawn Star and the Confederation of Independent Galaxies as significant threats. The vast disparity in national power gave the Separatists a fleeting chance to threaten the inner circle, potentially forcing the aristocratic families who feared war to pressure Palpatine into negotiating peace. As the war dragged on, the Separatists could no longer threaten the Republic's core, and their forces had largely withdrawn from the inner circle. Consequently, the aristocratic and wealthy families who had been observing from the sidelines were more than willing to support a war they could win by simply funding it. Therefore, the Galactic Republic's sense of a life-and-death crisis underscored the significant performance gap between the two fleets. The Republic's military seriously believed that the technological advancements and warship performance of the Principality of Dawn could bridge the gap in national strength, making it possible to defeat the Republic head-on. Given these widespread concerns, obtaining relevant information was not difficult. The Duchy of Dawn was certain that the Galactic Republic would launch an offensive soon, but the direction of the attack remained uncertain. Currently, in the area under the control, in the Principality of Dawn, there are two major traffic arteries, the planet Yego-Dur and the planet Eriadu. Planet Eriadu is a significant transportation hub and economic center between the middle ring and the outer ring, holding a very high strategic position. Although Yego-Dur is on the main hyperspace route, its value in transportation is not as high due to its location in a three-body galaxy. However, the Galactic Republic has speculated that the Jivan people assist the Duchy of Dawn in building the Titan battleship, giving them a valid reason to target the Yego-Dur galaxy. In addition to these two directions, it is possible that the Galactic Republic might attack the planet Christophsis. On the map, Christophsis appears as an enclave of the Principality of Dawn, but there is a hyperspace channel connecting the two, albeit at a greater distance. If the Republic decides to attack Christophsis, the Duchy of Dawn might struggle to defend it due to the distance. Another critical location is the planet Rendili. Since the Rendili Interstellar Power Company coerced the planet into joining the Separatists, the Galactic Republic has blocked the Rendili trade route, making it a true enclave. Despite this, the strong industrial production capacity of the Rendili Interstellar Power Company has allowed the defense fleet of Rendili to expand continuously, making it difficult for the Republic to launch a successful attack. As for the northern border, the conflict there has shifted from a war between the Separatists and the Republic to a racial war between intelligent life and mechanical life. Therefore, focusing on that direction is less of a priority. The four critical directions that the Principality of Dawn needs to address are Yego-Dur, Christophsis, Rendili, and Eriadu. These are the main topics of discussion at the Supreme Military Conference. Qijian made several marks on the holographic star map and then said, "My lord, according to recent reports from the Intelligence Department, we have detected large-scale hyperspace fluctuations near the 20th and 17th armies of the Galactic Republic. Given your previous conviction that the Republic will launch an attack on the model sector, we believe their military operation is still aimed at our mainland." Model Star Area. Tang Xiao, seated at the head of the table, said with a serious expression, "I can sense a pair of eyes in the darkness watching that direction. Darth Sidious wants to kill me now more than ever. He has wiped out the Jedi, gained Darth Vader, and a host of Force sensitives who have fallen to the dark side. His power is growing." He tapped the table lightly. "So, he will target me directly. This is not a military or strategic judgment, but an arrangement of the Force. There is a fateful connection between Sidious and me. He will believe that this battle is inevitable." "You mean Darth Sidious might also come?" Qijian asked seriously. "I'm certain that if he sees an opportunity to kill me, he will appear. Before that, I can't be sure," Tang Xiao replied. "Then how do we know that Darth Sidious wants to take a shortcut and directly attack our core? Couldn't he attack from the direction of Eriadu?" Ling Liang asked. "Because he can't wait, and he doesn't want to wait," Tang Xiao said flatly. "He has already started the countdown to becoming emperor, and my head is the best gift for his enthronement ceremony. He won't accept a steady approach. Killing me will grant him the inheritance of the dark side. At that point, he will truly become a one-man Sith. Even if the Galactic Republic wants to attack the model star area, they can't focus on just one direction. There will definitely be offensives in other directions to engage our troops," Qijian said, "So, we still have a lot of problems to address." Chapter 602, Information, Part 1. I want to ensure the safety of the model star district. Tang Xiao demanded, looking at Volgograd Kennedy, who was participating in the meeting remotely through a holographic projection. My request is that the model star district needs to increase the standing army by 20 million and build enough spaceports for 500 warships to berth and resupply on the planets of Anji, Vazian, and Orville 3. This must be completed within 2 months. Volgograd Kennedy responded, in the past month, the immigrant population in the model sector has increased by more than 5 billion, and this number is still rising. Under such circumstances, large-scale engineering projects may face. I want results, Tang Xiao interrupted coldly. If the model star district falls, then immigration won't matter. I'm already starting to let immigrants join the construction projects and use work as relief, which will speed up the construction of the spaceports. If the requirements are lowered, it is possible to complete the spaceports that can accommodate 500 warships for supplies, Kennedy said, his tone flat. But this will undoubtedly slow down the progress of the colony's construction, and many people will starve in the future. The model sector is about to become a battlefield, and this time the Republic will do everything it can. Soon, you might not have to worry about overpopulation, Helmut Zemo interjected coldly. Kennedy's eyes flashed with anger. What are you talking about? How many orbital bombings do you think the planetary shield of planet Anji can withstand? Zemo provoked. Once it fails, overpopulation will be the least of your concerns. Do you dare to come here and say that to my face? Kennedy roared, his voice like a lion's. Chi Jian stood up to mediate. Comrades, planet Anji is not the only issue we need to consider. The intentions of the Galactic Republic are still unclear. They might launch a full-scale attack against us within 2 months. Therefore, in addition to the model sector, we also need to prepare for defense in other directions. What does the Military Intelligence Department say? Tang Xiao asked, turning to Mrs. M. The Galactic Republic is now paying more and more attention to intelligence work, making it increasingly difficult for our agents to infiltrate. What is certain now is that there are a large number of hyperspace fluctuations in the jurisdiction of the 17th Army and the 20th Army of the Republic, Mrs. M. reported. But this information could mean anything, such as civilian spacecraft, supply ships, or engineering ships. The jurisdiction of the 17th Army needs to be rebuilt now, so it's not surprising that there are a large number of spacecraft movements. But from another perspective, this could also mean that the Republic is planning something, using the dilapidated base on planet Kira to assemble an army for a direct attack. If that's all you have, then I don't see the need for your military intelligence department. Tang Xiao's tone turned icy. Wouldn't it be better for me to build a few more hyperspace outposts? Mrs. M's face turned slightly pale. Tang Xiao's words were harsh. She knew that Tang Xiao's temper was becoming more irritable, and the saying, companions are like companions to tigers, was becoming more evident in him. Tang Xiao wasn't losing his temper irrationally, he was simply becoming less tolerant of failure. Especially with the growing strength of the Principality of Liming, Tang Xiao had more options. Now, he wouldn't spare any face for Mrs. M and the other legendary figures. With the national strength of the Principality of Liming, replacing them would be relatively easy. The Galactic Republic's fleet assembly this time is mainly on the planets in the core circle. This situation is different from before, Mrs. M continued. In the past, they would gather the fleet near the front line and launch an attack after ensuring sufficient supplies. However, their strategy seems to have changed now. Yes, Mrs. M said, their plan is to lull and a long-distance attack from the core circle. This will increase the element of surprise, but given the current state of their fleet, their first strategic goal after launching the attack should be to occupy a planet as a forward base. Mrs. M opened another page of data and continued. Additionally, our undercover agents have discovered that the resource demand at the Kuat power dock has increased significantly, surpassing normal levels. What do you mean by surpassing normal levels? Is the Kuat power shipyard ramping up its production capacity? Tang Xiao's expression finally softened. In fact, considering the vast scope of the entire galaxy, obtaining information is very challenging. The distance between galaxies is measured in light years, and the distance from the core circle to the outer ring spans tens of thousands of light years. Under such circumstances, any traditional observation method is futile. To put it bluntly, if you look at Coruscant with an optical telescope from the Dawn Star, what you see is the state of Coruscant from tens of thousands of years ago. It's almost laughable. You might even see the ancient wars between boasters and philosophers. Given these conditions, there is essentially only one way to obtain information. Send intelligence personnel or reconnaissance planes directly to the vicinity of the planet to gather data, and then relay the information back through hyperspace communication. Therefore, compared to planetary warfare, where satellites can provide a comprehensive view, interstellar intelligence warfare has become more primitive. This is why traditional agents, like the famed 07, still play a crucial role. An agent's job is to gather information firsthand and then transmit it. Long-distance intelligence acquisition is virtually impossible. In the early days of the war, since it was originally a civil conflict, personnel from both sides were intermingled, making it difficult to distinguish agents from ordinary citizens. At that time, especially for Dawn Planet, which had long focused on intelligence penetration into the Galactic Republic, intelligence warfare had a significant advantage. However, as the war progressed, the Galactic Republic repeatedly cleaned up its internal affairs, and the management of spaceship entry and exit became very strict. Now, in terms of information acquisition, both sides are back on equal footing. The competition now purely depends on the methods employed by each side. For instance, when Tang Xiao wanted to infiltrate the planet Korriban, which is under the control of the Galactic Republic, he had to rely on the Corellian gangster Blood Dawn to smuggle him in quietly. This was due to the increasingly stringent spaceship management by the Republic. Mrs. M explained, under normal circumstances, the Kuat Power Shipyard does not operate at full capacity due to the financial constraints of the Galactic Republic. The orders they receive are not enough to reach full saturation, so they usually operate efficiently within their means. To operate at full capacity, they need to invest additional manpower and resources. These resources do not disappear after production ends, so unless this state can be maintained, a short-term production capacity surge will result in significant losses. Qijian frowned and asked, "So this time, the Kuat Power Shipyard importing a large amount of supplies means they have spent a lot of money." "As far as I know, the economic situation of the Republic cannot sustain such expenditure," Mrs. M replied. Chapter 603, Information, Part 2. The Republic's finances can't sustain such production capacity? It's hard to imagine a businessman like Kuat Power Dockyard making such a decision. This means their expanded production capacity, increased production lines, engineers, and skilled workers will all be counted as extra costs, and no one will pay for them, Linglong frowned. What about the financial market? Tang Xiao turned his head and glanced at a holographic projection next to him. The current co-chairman of the Interstellar Banking Association, IBA, Thornhill, appeared. Compared to before, the Moon chairman now had a more ruthless look. He held a black cat in his arms and wore some hideous decorations on his body. His eyes were very sharp. Ever since the Interstellar Banking Association split into a human faction headed by planet Scipio and a moon faction headed by planet Makito, the internal struggle had been no less tragic than the battles on the front lines. Whether it was suppressing unstable factors within or engaging in financial struggles with planet Scipio, it was extremely cruel. In the past 6 months alone, Thornhill had directly plotted more than 1,000 assassination plans. Over time, his temperament naturally changed. The 50 trillion credit bonds issued by the Galactic Republic through Rush Clovis have not been clarified until now. With the status of the Kuat Power Dockyard, they will not accept this kind of bond. The Galactic Republic now has no money to continue paying military expenses apart from these credit bonds, Thornhill said. So, I think the Galactic Republic provided a mortgage to Kuat Power Dockyard, allowing them to expand their production capacity. This expanded production capacity will almost undoubtedly be used against us, Qijian said. Can you estimate how many warships there are? This abnormal transfer of materials started about a month ago. but more than a month is not enough to complete the manufacture of a 1,000-meter class capital ship. The complete process will take at least 3 months. Therefore, it is very difficult to estimate, Mrs. M said. Her forehead was already dripping with cold sweat because, during this period, the intelligence control of the Galactic Republic was unprecedented, putting her intelligence department under immense pressure. At this moment, a crisp voice suddenly came from the side. Can I say something? Everyone turned their heads to see Adele Ulan raising a hand and speaking timidly. In fact, she didn't need to attend the meeting originally, but Bangjira Ulan had given her the position of executive director of Rendili Interstellar Power Company, at least in name, so she still needed to attend. She had never spoken before and was considered a vase and a duchess, but this time she mustered up the courage to speak. This surprised everyone present. Go ahead, Tang Xiao nodded expressionlessly. Actually, even if we don't use all our production potential, it doesn't mean we don't do anything, whether it's Kuat or Rendili or even Corellia. Engineering companies mainly engage in small and medium-sized warships and civilian spaceships, so they are relatively free, Adele Ulan said. For example, if we receive an order for 100 warships, we probably won't produce exactly 100 warships. How many should that be? It was Volgograd Kanedi who spoke, seemingly overwhelmed or genuinely interested in this kind of production management topic. From the perspective of orders, if there are some problems with the warships produced, we need to have spare products immediately instead of reproduction. From the perspective of production management and cybernetics, all the parts we produce are based on batches, Adele Ulan said. She didn't feel sleepy when she said this and analyzed it logically. For example, the compression. Adele Ulan worked diligently on the computer, listing a plethora of data. The device of the XX-9 heavy-duty turbolaser cannon, a batch of 4705, can maximize the use of raw materials and production equipment. The armor-damping plate is generally produced in batches of 120,000 pieces, she explained. Although we are not allowed to produce more warships than the order quantity during normal times, we always prepare excess parts. The frame of the warship is usually produced and kept ready. So the Kuat Power Shipyard can assemble a large number of warships in a short period of time after expanding production? The flagship inquired. That's right, Adele confirmed. For example, after the planet Lundali transitioned from darkness to light, we were able to produce more than 150 Victory-class Star Destroyers in just 2 months. That's how it came about. We have visited planet Kuat before, and based on my judgment, they should have the capability to assemble more than 1,000 warships in a short period. However, these warships are likely to be reserved parts and frames, so there may not be many of the latest models. Many of them will be small and medium warships. She continued to click through a large amount of data on the computer. For instance, if the spare parts of the Jaeger-class battlecruiser are used on the Knight-class Star Destroyer, it is estimated that at least 8 to 10 Jaeger-class ships can be pieced together into Knight-class ships. In short, it depends on the opponent's choice. According to my judgment, if it is a 1,000-meter class capital ship, the Kuat Power Shipyard should be able to produce about 200 ships, but there should not be too many Knight-class Star Destroyers. Chijan's face grew serious. If such a force rushes over all at once, it is estimated that no front line except the Eliedu Galaxy can be guaranteed to hold. Is it possible for the second ship of the Ankron-class Titan battleship to form even the most preliminary combat capability in the near future? Tang Xiao asked the representative of the G-Wen people. It's absolutely impossible. The G-Wen representative shook his head vigorously. The frame of the Titan battleship has not even been built yet, and the internal system is only partially installed. If the Galactic Republic really has such an extra force suddenly, it will be very bad news for us. We might even have to prepare for the possibility of losing at least one of the fronts, Qijian said. In that case, instead of making wild guesses here, it's better for us to choose the battlefield, Ling Liang suggested. What's your opinion, General Ling? Qijian nodded. Why don't we give the Galactic Republic a reason to attack our chosen battlefield? Ling Liang proposed. For example, the Yago-Dur galaxy is a good battlefield. In that three-body galaxy, the Galactic Republic will find it difficult to deploy superior forces, and we will still have room to resist. And the most important thing is, Ling Liang's mouth turned up slightly. Doesn't the Galactic Republic want a Titan battleship? Let's give it to them. End of this chapter. Chapter 604, The Front of the Republic. We have written an extraordinary history, but days of peace and tranquility are seldom recorded. Professor Qi Jianjun, Founders of the Fourth Reich, Biography of Qi Jianjun, last page. 20 BY, July 6th. 2/3 of the year has passed. The Star Wars world has 10 months a year, 35 days a month to emphasize again, and the galaxy is still engulfed in war. The Galactic Republic has gradually begun to emerge from the shadow of the Jedi Knights. In fact, it had no choice but to do so. The Jedi Knights have become a taboo subject within the Republic, and even mentioning them is forbidden. The powerful propaganda machinery of the Republic has continuously portrayed the Jedi Knights as malevolent figures who deliberately incited wars, launched massacres, and controlled the core of the Republic's power. They were even accused of attempting to assassinate Speaker Palpatine for their own gain. In reality, the people of the galaxy rarely saw the Jedi Knights and only heard legends about them. The actions of the Jedi were often very low-key. For instance, when they arrested spice dealers, they frequently disarmed them and asked them to surrender voluntarily. Under the influence of the Force, the minds of these disarmed spice dealers were easily breached, and they subconsciously complied with the Jedi's instructions. This meant that even fewer people actually witnessed a Jedi in action. After the war broke out, Palpatine had a comprehensive plan. His propaganda often linked the Jedi Knights to the war, such as reporting which Jedi Master led the capture of a certain planet, or how many separatist rebels were killed under their command. With more news like this, people's impressions of the Jedi Knights naturally changed. In this interstellar era, most of the public's information came from their own planet. All news across the galaxy required hyperspace communication technology, which was controlled by a few large communication companies. The expensive Galaxy holographic network was affordable to only a few. Palpatine had taken control of the media and propaganda agencies early on, and the power of public opinion sometimes proved stronger than 1,000 Star Destroyers. Therefore, after the Jedi Knights were exterminated and a bounty was placed on them, an atmosphere of hatred towards the Jedi quickly permeated the Galactic Republic. Palpatine then pushed the Parliament to pass a bill requiring all Force-sensitive individuals above a certain threshold to be nationalized and recruited. They would undergo centralized training and be assigned to different Force-sensitive organizations based on their abilities. However, the implementation of this bill was not smooth. A group of congressmen, led by Bail Organa, strongly opposed it. They believed that the Jedi Order was innocent and that the Galactic Republic should not dismantle the Jedi Order's structure. Despite their opposition, the influence of the Jedi Order in other fields of the Galactic Republic, especially in the military, was quickly eradicated. A few months later, the Republic's army regained its combat capability. However, the current army of the Republic had virtually no Force-sensitive individuals. When facing Count Dooku and Tang Xiao's dark side warriors on the battlefield, they still suffered significant losses. In response, Palpatine secretly advanced his own plan with the help of his advisor, Black Hole. This plan bypassed the Parliament entirely, and several dark and mysterious dark side force organizations were being prepared. At this time, the Galactic Republic's counteroffensive began. In the northern region, the 9th and 10th armies have nearly eradicated the separatist forces within their jurisdictions. This is largely because there are no particularly strong separatist planets in this area. However, the 7th and 8th armies are facing significant challenges due to the Geth's relentless attacks, which have made the Galactic Republic's position quite precarious. Recently, the Geth's assaults on the planet Theta have been especially fierce, overshadowing the victories of the 9th and 10th armies and casting a pall over the entire northern border. In the northeast sector of the star map, the Galactic Republic has once again launched an offensive against the planet Salukami, which is defended by General Grievous. However, the rebellion of the Second Galaxy Army has significantly weakened the Republic's strength in this area, making it impossible to defeat General Grievous in a single strike. The situation has become even more complicated with Severance Tan's sudden attack, which resulted in the defeat of Master Windu and the Second Galaxy Army. This has led to the disintegration of the Neutral Galaxy Alliance. On the Mandalorian planet, Vizsla, the leader of the Death Guard, has repeatedly pledged loyalty to the Galactic Republic and requested military reinforcements. However, following the collapse of the Neutral Galaxy Alliance, the stance of many galaxies in this region has become ambiguous. Consequently, the Republic is reluctant to get involved in this uncertain situation and has only offered Vizsla verbal assurances. The Republic's strategy in this direction is to concentrate its forces on repeatedly attacking the planet Salukami, aiming to breach the last stronghold of the Confederation of Independent Galaxies and penetrate their core territory. The recent appearance of the Destroyer, the second Conqueror-class battleship, and the Shadow, the second Ragnarov-class Titan battleship, has heightened the Republic's concerns. They fear that if left unchecked, more super battleships will emerge, given the Confederation's strong industrial capabilities on the planet Dak and at the port of Parmont. On the eastern border of the star map lies Hutt space. The Galactic Republic is cautious not to provoke the chaotic Hutts and has no plans for military action in this direction. In the southeast region, the Republic's counteroffensive has been relatively successful. The Supreme Strategic Command aims to liberate the planet Reynolds and rebuild the 14th Army within 2 months. However, the planet Christophsis remains a tough challenge. The plan is to re-establish the 14th Army and then gradually address the situation on Christophsis. The southwest border, particularly the Duchy of Dawn, is a critical focus. The Supreme Strategic Command of the Republic lacks the resolve to launch a full-scale assault on the Duchy of Dawn due to previous failed attempts. The Duchy of Dawn capitalized on the Republic's preoccupation with Jedi Order affairs, launching a surprise attack that crippled the 17th Army in the Battle of the Anako Galaxy. This defeat has made the Supreme Strategic Command even more hesitant, as they have yet to find an effective strategy against the Titan battleship Swanwu. General Ling Liang, who commands the Swanwu, has demonstrated strategic prudence. After the Battle of the Anako Galaxy, she did not pursue further attacks on the planet Naboo, but instead withdrew, adopting a defensive stance. This cautious approach has made the Republic wary, as the Swanwu remains a formidable threat. Despite these challenges, Speaker Schiff Palpatine is determined to press on with the assault on the Duchy of Dawn.